Hello, everyone. This is the Stronghold podcast, episode 10, and this is going to be a fun one. This is the first three-person podcast we've ever done, so I'm really excited for it. Never done this format before, so it's going to be interesting. But I've got two of my good friends here, Greg from episode 1, Gregg Speirs, and James Kwan, Kimura Kwan.
Oh,
James
nice.
is a
nickname?
Yeah, Kimura Kwan. By the way, he's got some good Kimuras. So Kwan is Kwan's a brown belt in Jiu-jitsu, and I dare say nearing the black belt level.
We'll see. And
he's also a fucking PhD and a teacher at NTU and stuff, so more than likely he'll be fired after this podcast.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone. So we were having so many interesting conversations before the podcast that I feel like I didn't want to talk too much because I feel like we could
it's always the
get
way,
into
isn't it?
I know. And we have a lot of beer, so Greg, as usual, did his job. I'm going to try to drink Southpaw today so you guys can not, so the beer's not in the shot, but we're double fisting at this point. Okay, so there's some beer for you all. Okay, guys, so one thing that we were talking about before is we all kind of train. Greg's trained, Kwan's a brown belt, and we were sort of talking about the fact that suffering is really, really an important part of life. And I really think it's applicable to martial arts because I think it's the it's the selling point. It's the cornerstone. Is like you don't get good at martial arts without suffering because everybody starts out as a white belt. Doesn't matter your discipline, and when you start out, you're nervous and you're scared and it sucks and you're getting beat up all the time. And there's a certain amount of struggle. Yeah, exactly. We all were. Even like me and Kwan, we were white belts, man. And there's just that suffering you have to go through. And those people that come in, that train, like in their off time, they're basically paying for the pleasure of getting their ass kicked.
I'm a brown belt, but I identify as a white belt.
Okay. So. Yeah, well, I'm a brown belt and I identify as a white belt. So.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why I show up to all the competitions with only a white belt.
Yeah, you're that guy.
Yeah.
You're that guy. Goes to the
Bit
foreign
of
gym
sandwich.
wearing a white belt. You're like, ugh.
Reverse fake belt.
Yeah, exactly. I just purposely tie it the wrong way so it's vertical.
I thought it was a tie.
Just wrapped around your shoulder like a bandolier.
Yeah. Bandolier?
I don't know. What's that word?
I'm going to go with bandolier.
No, but it's a good point because I
Pull
agree.
that right up to your face, Kwan. Get that robot dick near your mouth, buddy.
Yeah.
That's it.
No, no, it's not. Okay, good. So yeah, no, I agree entirely. I think that I think what we were saying earlier, it's part of that human condition. We need to suffer to get through things. We need to, and I think martial arts, in some weird way, at one point in time, was a necessity of life. It was a way of training for military arts. But in this day and age where we have a life that's kind of pretty easy, we're not dying left and right. It's
In Singapore.
Yeah, in Singapore. Well, yeah. I find that it's a source where you can get back into that in an environment where you will suffer. And
Well, it used to be
reconnect.
forced on you, right? It used to be forced on you. Now it's sort of something you have to seek out, which is
Yeah.
quite an interesting dynamic, I feel.
It's a bit different because, well, we all do seek it out in some way.
In different ways, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Whatever your pastimes are, whatever your hobbies are, it's a form of suffering. So, I mean, it's not necessarily like physical suffering where you're getting your like joints twisted or whatever in jiu-jitsu, but it could also be like if you're, because I'm a total nerd, right? If you're a gamer, right, it's picking a low-level character, and then you suffer all the way through to the end when you get those rewards, or you learn a new language. You have no appreciation or understanding in the very beginning, and then you apply yourself and suffer all the way through looking like an idiot until you actually get that mastery. And that applies in anything. Like, life is so, you can apply detail in such an infinitesimal way to anything. It's like, oh, look at this table. I wonder what type of melanin this is. Could we make this better? Is there a way to make this smoother and more durable? And it's like you exist in a world with things that are at a certain level, and then you can go in any direction and either make it better or attempt to make it better or learn how to do it.
Or understand it or whatever.
Yeah. And to just sort of expand on that, it is true. I mean, but there needs to be, in some sense, a reward at the end of the day. If you suffer endlessly...
Carrots and sticks, right? It's carrots and sticks.
Yeah, if you suffer endlessly, then, and there is no end, or there's no reward, it ends up going against your favor. So there is a balance between how much you suffer versus the reward you get for that. So that's why I think martial arts is, in some sense, in this day and age, so important, because there is an end. There's the end of the class. You get that endorphin kick from your whatever training session that you had. You go home, you rest, relax, and you're sort of renewed in some sense.
And it's even beyond that, too. It's the physical, like, you want to get in shape. You want to lose weight. That's something tangible that you can get if you want to start training.
Exactly.
Right? If you want to be a fucking badass, right? You see, like, the black belts or whoever the beasts are at the gym. You see them training, and you're just like, oh, I want that. Like, I just want to be that. Whether it's the way they look, whether you the skill level, the observation of the mastery of the techniques that they have. Like, depending on, like you said, what your avenue is, what your lane is, you can go to the furthest degree, whatever's interesting
What stops
nowadays.
you,
Yeah.
you know? It's like, I would love to look like God of War, not going to lie.
Yeah.
That would be the boom, icing on the cake.
Which my wife says I look like now.
Oh, yeah,
As I'm
getting there.
growing the beard out, the bald head, trying to get jacked, man,
You
lifting
gotta
the
get
weights.
The red in the eye and stuff like that.
Maybe Halloween next year. I got to gain about 100 kilos of muscle mass, and then I will.
It's the people, but I always worry it's the people that tend to shy away from that suffering, to not recognize that suffering is part of the process. That is a necessary part of the process of anything.
Those are the ones that quit, you know, or
Yeah.
whatever their thing is, whether it's martial arts or whether it's their college or whether it's their career or whatever, right?
But if you think about, like, time, right? So if you've done one jiu-jitsu class and got, wrecked as a white belt, got rolled left and right, your reflection of that is 100% of the time that I was doing this,
I was getting fucked up.
destroyed.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? But then it's like, oh, people keep saying, oh, time just seems like it's speeding up the older I get. It's like, well, yeah, because when you were 1, a year was like 100% of your life, and when you're 10, it was 10%. And so it shrinks. Or the more you do something, the more that time window shrinks and becomes manageable. So it's not like, you were talking about, oh, the suffering comes to an end when the class ends. Sometimes the beginning
For the
of
day.
class, you're like, oh, I don't know if we're going to see this. What is
Yeah,
this?
I'm not going to make it to the end of
This
this.
ethereal thing of the end of class. That's like an hour from now. But then, the more you do it, the more you appreciate how short that time can become. And you just stack and stack and stack on top of each other, and it shrinks down that window and gives you perspective to look back. Because if you only had like one class, your whole perspective is that one class, right? I don't know.
But it's interesting because you say that because in some sense...
Pull that up, Kwan. Get that thing right in your mouth.
It's falling down. But anyway, it's kind of... The only times, the most vivid memories I have of training in jiu-jitsu are basically my entire white belt.
Right.
Like,
Right.
blue, purple, and even parts of brown have been a blur.
Yeah, it just
Wow.
blends in
It's
together,
just
right?
all the same. I don't feel any different than I was as a blue belt as I do now.
But that's probably that's the 1 year, 2 year, 3
Yeah.
year. Once you get over the hump, right? And the hump, there's various humps that you go through in jiu-jitsu. Like when you first start, there's like a 3 to 6 month window where you're just getting fucked up all the time. Like you can't. That's going to be tough for anybody that walks in the door. And then if you get through that one, you get a couple years, then you can start to win. And then there's like the blue belt hump, which is like is it Socrates or somebody that says the real genius is knowing how little you know.
Yeah.
And it's like when you do something enough, you start to see how much more. So if you're a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, right? You've trained 1 to 3 years. It's just about 1 to 3 years in that you have some skill, but you also realize that there's 7 to 8 years worth more of this. So you learn just enough to realize how little you know and how much longer the path is going to be than you initially thought. So that's a definitely big hump. Once you get to like purple belt or brown belt, the odds are you're conditioned enough emotionally and physically and mentally to stick it out more often than not. But there are those first few hurdles that you get to that, man, are just, they're rough.
But you've sort of been vaccinated against the suffering. Like I look, to keep with that theme of...
I'm anti-vax over here. So,
Yeah, okay.
No, I'm not.
I feel bad for your child. Should I call like
Put all the
CPS
things,
or...
like, stat-
Both new fathers, by the way. Kwan and
yes.
Gregg,
Yeah,
both
yeah.
new fathers within the last 2
Cheers.
months. So I'll cheers to that too.
Cheers, brother.
Both have beautiful
I'm not a
kids.
dad, get out of here.
Hey, I have feelings too.
He has kids. He comes and beats them up.
Well, yes. Well, I guess that's what we have in common then.
like to
By
beat
the
up
way, I do
children.
not beat my child.
No, I'll do it for you. You pay someone
Yeah,
else to do
exactly.
that. That's the thing.
No, but it's. Oh, now I lost my train of thought.
I totally lost the train of thought too.
Oh.
We were talking about the humps that you get into.
Well, it's like climbing a
from
mountain, right? The first couple of feet of a mountain, you're like, I mean, doable, but then you're just staring up at the top of this thing. You get halfway and you're like, okay, manageable, but damn, I still have a fuck long way to go, right, to get to the top. That last top, it's now icy, it's covered in like windy, no oxygen because it's so much higher up. You're like, oh, this is a whole new level
Yeah.
of finite skill set that I didn't appreciate when I was at ground level, you know,
Yeah.
you have the ability to look back at where you've come, but you're like, yeah, but I remember that rock that I nearly tripped over, and whatever, I got over it, but how the hell am I going to climb through this ice? And that's where it gets super slippery and hard, and this is where people die at the top, you know, and so it's constantly readjusting your skill versus the difficulty and the knowledge that's available. And I mean, which black belt says, I'm done.
I've
Nailed it."
mastered jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Peace out.
Yeah.
Well, don't they
Anything
say
about
that,
jiu-jitsu,
like-
I got it.
Yeah.
No one says it because people come up with new systems, like Eddie Bravo's system or whatever. You know, that takes traditional jiu-jitsu.
Or the leg
and
locking
changes
game
it.
nowadays.
You know,
Yeah, I mean, it's a game changer.
That's what we're talking about. Any infinitesimal change.
And you know what's interesting too? I think the longer as you get older, you start to expand and you have more of these lanes that you get into. I mean, James and I were talking about sort of teaching earlier and the skill of mastering or to your best, gaining mastery in some particular thing, and then when you achieve mastery, typically you'll start to teach that, right? And so it's very common that, let's say you get your black belt in jiu-jitsu, or you get your degree or whatever, your master's degree in something. You're up to that point, all you're learning are the necessary components and the sort of structure of what it is that you're studying. But then when you decide to teach it, you've entered into a whole new realm, because the realm of teaching something, you have to have the base knowledge. That's the prerequisite to be a good teacher. But then the actual process of teaching itself is a whole new thing that you're starting out as a white belt. And, you know, something else that's analogous to me is like owning a business. I mean, as a gym owner now, this is my first business, and I kind of thought, you know, I'll be a teacher here and I'll teach these classes, but it's so much more than that. I have to be an admin. I have to try to like get money. I have to try to bring in students. I have to market. I have to, all of these things that I started at, I'm a white belt in that shit. And then like now it's this whole picture that I'm trying to slowly gain mastery on in areas that I didn't even sign up for that now are sort of necessary for me to do my job well. And I think as you get older, you start to get into more of those realms, which is good because I think that shit's what keeps you young. Finding new things to get good at, to skills to gain that supplement your whole sort of life, your life's work, you know?
Well, you become more whole as a person. You get your personal ethos and all this kind of stuff. But to your point of learning to be a teacher, like when you're learning things, the information flow is very one direction. It's like into the brain, from somewhere else into my head, right? And so you get the nuts and the bolts and everything. But have you ever, say, had a question about something and you go to ask someone whatever you're pondering, and halfway through asking the question you go, oh, actually, no, wait, I got it, never mind, right? It's that rephrasing of something, so you're now coming at it from a different angle. So you have to appreciate, so instead of just having like knowledge, you have to think about it from a different point of view, and that in itself can like help switch and like fire off different connections and things like that.
But it's actually kind of interesting you say that, because when I give my lectures, like, maybe I should rephrase this in that when I was an undergraduate, I had a professor who made a very memorable comment. He said that when you learn, you sort of learn in threes. So the first time you hear it, it'll go in one ear, out the other. The second time you go, oh, hey, and you might think about it a bit more. And it's usually by the third time you've heard a concept, that's when it starts to sink in, you really develop it. So when I teach at NTU, my goal...
Can you say that 2 more times, by the way?
Yeah. Usually my goal, at least when I lecture, is to just get it so they actually have just the general words and know that something exists. I know for almost damn sure that they'll never, probably the moment they leave my class, they'll remember everything that I taught. But that's not the point. I'm hoping that someday, 5 years down the line, someone might make a comment and it might trigger, oh, I remember that. And they'll in that process maybe get more interest in it, or maybe think about it in a bit more detail and then develop it. At the end of the day, no matter what as teachers that we say to them is sort of just presenting material. Students, in my opinion, don't truly learn until they do it themselves. Until they actively go through the process of self-learning, self-realization.
I was going to tie Gregg's point into yours, because I was going to ask you, did you find that even stuff you may have been slightly vague on or ambiguous in your mind, like even concepts that you know, when you teach them, it reinforces, it makes you realize even more and cements the whole thing kind of more clearly for you than even you thought, just by trying to explain it to someone.
So there's this one course that I teach, and I use this one textbook that I used when that I had since graduate school. And for the life of me, I would read this book 1,000 times, and I can't understand anything about it. When I'm forced to teach, I end up using it as a reference because it's just so comprehensive. And in every year that I've now taught this course 4 times, and in the 4th year of teaching this course, I'm starting to finally click because I have to do it myself. I have to do the derivations. I have to go through the process of what is in the textbook myself in order for me to be prepared to answer some of the most fundamental questions that are asked by the students.
And then just imagine trying to teach that your first year and then trying to teach it your 4th year.
Yeah.
And the level of not only understanding that you have, but the clarity with which you can dispel that information.
And all the questions that have been asked in those 3 years where you're like, oh, let me think about it. Boom, here's your answer.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
That's why teaching is its own path of mastery,
It is.
right?
But also I think for the students, they need to realize that in some sense the teacher isn't just pouring a bunch of knowledge into some bowl that fills your brain, right? There is this old Greek philosopher that gave a lecture on the idea of giving lectures, and he basically said that when the purpose of teaching, I'm paraphrasing quite a bit, but the purpose of teaching isn't to fill a bowl of water, fill a bowl with water, but instead to light a fire, of a kindling of knowledge so that people engage or try to figure out things for themselves. They become inspired to learn on their own. And that's what I believe is true. Like, at the end of the day, the purpose of us as teachers, either in jiu-jitsu or in engineering or whatever, brewing, it doesn't matter. The purpose is to inspire the student with something that they realize that, oh, I'm interested in this. I want to learn more about this. And they'll learn the most when they teach it to themselves, when they just do it themselves. And it'll suck. I mean, they will suffer through that.
But there's no learning like
process.
self-learning.
Right.
Yeah. There's no learning like self-learning.
If you want to run a business, you got to just do it.
Yeah.
You just kind of throw yourself in there. If you want to be a writer, you just have to write. If you want to be a beer brewer, you have to just brew.
Make beer.
Well, this is coming back when I... it's funny. I only felt like I knew what I was talking about months after I got my exam results and passed and had the thing brewmaster, blah blah blah. So I'd come back from from Germany, and I was sitting on the plane and I had this very whoa, I know kung fu moment. It was just I've got so much knowledge in my brain. What do I do with it? So I come back to Singapore, and our neighbors had this little kid who was like, where were you? What were you doing? And for the past, half a year plus. So I told him that I was learning about beer, how to make beer, and he goes, oh, how do you make beer? And he was 6. So I sat and broke down the whole brewing process to a 6-year-old, and on one piece of A4 paper, right? And he ran away with it in his hand, I know how to make beer. I'm a terrible
So we're
influence.
Americans with the 8.5 by 11.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Okay.
You're poisoning the youth of Singapore.
American paper, why?
Yeah.
Anyway.
This kid's going to have a brewing kit and 8 years old in his thing, and
but
the
it
parents are
was-
going to be like...
It was watching him run out of the kitchen with his paper in his hand where I was like, damn, I actually know the stuff inside out. Because there were 2 points. There was that, and before that, I'd had a dream about being a yeast cell, right?
Wow.
And
Okay.
just
fucking
went
lame
through the
dream.
whole...
Bro.
Hey,
Yeah,
man.
exactly.
Hey,
Oh my
man.
God, what the fuck?
It was during exam
That's
times.
what your dreams are, bro?
But it was like learning the tryptophan roots and how things change and all this, this changes to that and blah, blah, blah. So you have this molecule that travels through your body. And it took these separate, disparate concepts and put it all together in this chain where I was like, oh, I kind of get it now. I get the flow and I get what it means. And so you can... One of the whole things about being a brewmaster is you need to, if I taste a beer, right, and if I taste one thing in that beer, I need to be able to think back to all the processes that happened and tell you where that went wrong, right? So it's oh, this tastes papery, boom, maybe it was oxidized. Oh, this tastes, blah, maybe it wasn't shaped. Oh, this tastes like diacetyl, we didn't have the diacetyl rest. So you have to be able to go back and pinpoint that, and you only get that if you know the whole flow and a lot of the variables that kind of go off it, right?
But
So
how
it's-
much of that was sort of learning by lectures, wrote, and how much of that was learned through experience and just experimenting and trial and error and sort of messing about?
What
and-
percentage of it do you think took place in a textbook as opposed to the physical,
Yeah. I mean,
the
So I
real experience?
So I attempted to learn. This is what ties into. So you're a chemical engineer,
Yeah.
right? So for my British system, so I did things like art, English, drama, general studies, politics, right? And then found this brewing course. I was like, oh, making beer, that sounds fun. And went to it. And every other person, pretty much bar 4 people who still did biology, chemistry, had done biology, chemistry, maths, and physics.
Yeah.
That was their 4 subjects, right? And it was a 4-year degree. I struggled through I passed all my grades up to 3 years. In the 4th year, I was like, this is a lost cause. Like, I do not understand. So I came back to Singapore, worked in a microbrewery, and kind of things started to click a little bit more. And then I was like, okay, if I felt like I knew 85% of the facts, right? But then when I went to Germany, I was like putting all that stuff together, plus a little bit of like hands-on experience.
Did they make you do hands-on? I mean, they must have, right?
Dude, it was like
They had that physically in a brewery.
Yeah.
Or
Well, it was like 7:30 to 4:30 p.m. was lectures, and then 5:30 to 9 p.m. was lab work every day. Saturdays we had off, and Sundays we brewed.
Oh, that's good. So it was a comprehensive.
But I mean, we
course,
also
right?
kind of brewed
Germany.
Saturdays, Like it was 7 days a week for 6 months, nonstop. It was great. It was hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Being able to. There's a difference between understanding the process of brewing and then being able to like remember all my chemistry lectures. At one point
You even talked to me a lot about carbonation and like how specifically that's a whole.
Dude, yeah.
That doesn't relate to taste.
It totally does.
I mean, it does, but not as directly as like the ingredients. You think, at least for me, I generally think of it more as like the fact that it's well carbonated, the foam.
Well,
if
it's
you
not
think
just that.
you
I
get on
find
the
that
beer,
if I drink flat beer, it's less acidic.
Yeah. I mean, exactly.
Because
it's carbonic acid.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
but that's interesting. And then
but
there's
it's
also
a
the
puckering.
carbonation.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
also the level of the head, the
I mean,
bubble size.
It all ties
right?
together, right? So if you have like protein in a beer, that helps support the head formation, and the head of a beer is just a protein matrix. That it's like a little, like a bunch of like fishing nets that are holding bubbles in that can't necessarily break because the surface tension of the beer can't get out.
Some
right?
beers are famous for their head.
Yeah, like
I mean, that's a
wheat
whole
beers,
thing.
things like that. I mean,
even like a Guinness, right? You top down a Guinness all the way as it slowly rises. I mean, that's like a well-known.
You got to pour it in 2
straight-
parts in 7 minutes to make Guinness.
There's
you
a
gotta pour it.
specific.
Oh yeah.
It's also, don't they use? They typically use nitrogen instead of
So nitrogen
air.
is
At
a
least my
real
understanding
pain in the
of
ass.
some of the Guinnesses that they prefer nitrogen instead of.
Totally, because so if you're talking about CO2 versus nitrogen, right? You've got carbon dioxide, which is carbonic acid, which it's got a bite to it. It's an acid, right? Yeah. So it's gonna give you more pucker to your beer. The bubble is larger. It's more effervescent. It'll kind of like pop and whatnot. Nitrogen, and you can carbonate something at. So there's a law that dictates the colder the liquid, the more. Exactly. Yeah. The more gas you can.
So sorry. So typically, for liquids, aqueous solutions such as beer, you would have solubility is dependent on temperature.
Totally.
The lower the temperature, the more soluble. So if you actually want to degas something, if you want to remove all of the dissolved gas within a given liquid, you want to boil it.
Yep. Heat it up.
And then you basically have no gas in there whatsoever.
Totally.
So just to give background too for the listeners, you're a brewer as amateur.
Well,
amateur
I'm
brewer. You're
as
you're a
amateur
brewer,
as
man.
amateur
You're a brewer,
gets.
like,
well, whatever,
you know.
man. Like you do it in your spare time.
I do it
for fun. So
And-
you've done how? Okay, so sorry if I can go off.
Yeah.
Go for it, man. It was
What kind of stuff
conversation.
have you brewed, and like how much of it do you think?
So
Like what level are you? Are you blue belt? Are you still white belt?
I'm a
What's
white
the-
belt.
are you
No,
still white belt?
I'm very much a white belt. I've probably made total at most 8 to 10 brews, but I always do my best to change things up. So I made.
What have you brewed of the like?
So I've made a grapefruit pale ale.
Yes.
I've made 2 different types of amber ales.
Love ambers.
I've made a stout. I've just recently made a double IPA.
Ooh.
Not in terms of numbers, but the thing I'm most sort of happy with is I've made a sake beer hybrid.
Ooh. Okay. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you told me
So,
about. Did you give me
yeah.
some?
Yeah,
did you
I think I might have brought some. I was thinking of bringing some today, but I ended up not bringing it.
I think you
People
did-
get
you
mad
did
when
bring
I
some.
say sake is a beer. They're like,
It
no,
is
it's
a beer.
not. It's not.
No,
I'm
sake.
like,
So
it
if you
is.
look at the process
Yeah,
of making
exactly.
sake, it's
Yeah.
more similar to beer than it is wine.
What is it classified as? Is it classified as like a wine, a
It's a
barley
rice.
wine?
They call it
Is
a
it
rice
rice
wine, but I would call it a rice beer.
Totally.
I would call it a rice beer.
Super high, it depends on the
You
alcohol.
use some degrees of hops. It's basically the same process.
What's the percentage on a sake? Is it like 11ish, like
It
a
can
wine?
change,
or-
right?
It can be pretty high.
Is it?
Yeah. It can
Higher
be
than what? Like,
Probably
give me a ballpark.
14 to. It could be anywhere between 10 all the way to 20,
Okay.
depending on.
It's like big barley wine
Yeah.
kind
Yeah,
of.
but that's what I was thinking.
Just to
in terms of-
finish the point on the nitrogen CO2 thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So CO2 has it's a lot more soluble, right? So it's easier to put CO2 into beers, right? You hook it up to CO2, put a keg on its side, rock it back and forth in a cold place, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, you come back, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, rock it back and forth with either foot, carbonated keg, right? And the pressure can be like 1 bar, right? Nitrogen is a pain in the ass because you need to have this stuff so fucking cold, and then you need to bang it in. Like, you need to ram nitrogen into a beer so much.
But you get smaller bubbles.
100%, which gives you that mouthfeel,
So
right?
that's the Guinnessy kind of
Yeah,
thing that
exactly.
you get,
That
the
creaminess.
cascade.
Yeah.
which is quite nice. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like
we do it with our stout.
it's
in
almost
bars.
like romantic. I feel like
Yeah,
when you
yeah,
take
yeah,
a big drink and it's got that real heady foam to it that stays on throughout the whole beer.
Mm-hmm.
Because I like aesthetically when I finish my beer and I can see foam on
Lacing?
the side of the glass.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean then I know that there's a nice, good, solid stick to the foam. It's not. It doesn't taste as watery. And
But you also know that that's quality of ingredients. It's either in the hop because you get the oils from the hops that help head retention, or it's the protein in the beer that helps head retention. Like, you can see quality in a beer, right? From the remnants that it leaves behind. If there's no beer left, it was good beer, right?
yeah. Well, not necessarily.
Well,
I've drank some shitty stuff and I finish it. I'm
finished
not gonna
some
waste
bad
it.
beers.
To be fair, I just drink anything.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm British. I'm nice, so of course I'll finish anything.
I'm a
people give
slut,
me.
dude. I'll drink anything. I don't care. Like no one owns me.
Yeah.
Oh, what are you drinking, Greg?
Oh, I moved on to the.
Oh, you moved on already?
You moved on to the soul style.
No.
I didn't want to
How much you got
interrupt.
left?
I felt bad.
By the way, we're gonna do our best to get pretty drunk. So
Hey, well,
cheers to being new fathers and all that kind of
We're
stuff.
not, yes.
Yeah, I actually don't get
Have
to
I
drink
had a
very
beer
much.
since my daughter was born?
Well, it's only been
That's
2
what
weeks.
Kwan was just saying.
Yeah.
He was just saying when he came in, he's like, I haven't. To be fair, it has only been 2
Yeah.
weeks, but
It's
But for someone who makes beer, right?
No,
Like
I
you
was gonna
said, I
say-
would have
Fair
drunk
point.
sooner.
well, it's kind of funny you say that because my brother was an avid video game player growing up. Fucking
Shout out to your brother.
Oh yeah.
look at his hat, dude.
No. My brother was
Fucking shoes are he's got NES shoes over there too. I'm not even kidding. Look at his hat. Show your hat to the camera. He's got the same fucking matching shoes sitting over there.
Kids love playing with my hat.
Oh my
and I'm
God.
like,
I mean, what are they playing?
well, I'll just
That
say
may as
like,
well be.
show me the Konami code.
Yeah,
Show me
okay.
the
Dude,
Konami
to kids
code.
today, that's a fucking abacus. That's not even a.
So not only do I have so this is the Super Nintendo, right, hat.
Okay, let's open this beer.
It's not
Ooh.
Super Nintendo. It's regular Nintendo.
That's goddamn it, Greg.
Come
What
on.
have you done,
Oh my
bro?
God, you've just
That's
What are you talking
NES,
about? What are you
not
talking about?
SNES.
Oh my god.
It's NES.
My bad.
Did you not remember what
Jesus.
hat you were wearing?
I didn't.
He's a
I
PC
didn't.
gamer, dude.
No,
Fucking-
that's not true.
Fucking
Hey, no.
nerd.
PC gamer
Fucking-
master race. I'm just gonna put that out there.
Jesus.
Yeah, okay.
I'm all
But,
console. I'm American,
so-
bro.
But the other pair of
All
shoes that I
consoles.
have are Atari, right? So that can tell
Oh, cheers,
when
guys.
people are like, "Oh, what are those shoes?" I get these ones, but I don't get the what the other ones, the magenta. Sorry, not magenta. The maroon and the gold kind of Atari shoes. So this is Green Flash, also based out of California. We're
Ooh.
doing 3 IPAs today. So
That's
we've got
that's
a
my favorite one so far.
7% Coronado. Coronado's on the coast. It was a guava IPA to get us
By
started.
the way, I'm
because
feeling that last one. Fuck, 7%.
7%.
Whoo.
Yeah. Well, it's guava, so it's like breakfast, right? That's
What?
I based it on.
So wait,
that.
what's this
it
one?
Had
The-
fruit in it.
So the Coronado, this for
Yeah.
the people that are
6.5.
watching the podcast, this
Let's
is
do
the
one down a little bit.
7%, right? This
Yeah.
one. And then what do we got on the Soul Style IPA?
a little bit more bitter.
6.5.
Is this?
6.5.
I thought it was 7-ish.
6.5.
6.5.
Uh,
7 and 6.5.
We have 2 6. This
I
is
think
7,
the Soul
right?
Style is the one though. This one is solid.
Getting there. It's got more of that kind of West Coast profile.
Yeah.
Super nice. Green Flash, great little company. Do you know?
It's good.
Do you know what Green Flash is?
Nope.
You know what Green Flash is?
I'm too poor for craft beer, dude. I just
No,
I keep it
no,
cheap.
not the beer. So
cheap and sleazy, baby.
the term
Tiger and
Green
Heineken?
Flash. So it's as the sun dips just below the horizon, there's sometimes the green flash.
Never seen that.
I've never seen it either, but it's a thing. It's a nautical thing
Okay.
apparently, and that's what this whole brewery is based on. Kind of cool. I don't know. Nautical.
It's good beer. This is
It's
California.
super nice, man. Yeah.
Let's continue my point about my brother's video game obsession.
Sorry.
Oh yeah, get it.
So
Get
he
it.
ended up becoming a video game designer, and he works for a number.
Which
of
is
different
obsession gone
He
to
actually
the
worked on a game that won a BAFTA.
Wow.
He
What
worked
game?
on this is embarrassing.
for my gaming nerds. No, don't just say it, dude.
Ricky Gervais, the
no,
MMO.
it's embarrassing because I cannot think of the name.
Oh, that is fucking embarrassing,
It's,
bro.
But you have like
What
20
Remains
brothers.
of Edith Finch.
Oh, I've heard of it.
Yeah, so he helped make that game.
What company does he work for?
I feel like I've heard of
Do you
it.
know?
I don't know.
God damn it, Kwan.
Because I'm bad with. I don't play as many video games as I used to. Anyway, so he barely plays any games anymore.
Because
Because he's always making them, and
Yep.
because life,
Yep.
work, and life.
Greg
gets
doesn't
in the
drink very much. He's not
Very
really.
Yeah.
He's not really
I
a
feel
drinker.
like when
Very
you, it's almost like,
You work in Burger King, you don't want to fucking.
how much
Whopper.
do you train?
Every day.
No, I mean honestly, like how much do you do jujitsu? Like actually hardcore train.
5 or
jujitsu?
6. I train almost every class.
Really?
Seriously.
That's impressive. Because
I know.
most of the
I'm not
time I
shitting.
see,
I'm not fucking
most
around.
of the time I see people who do professionally jujitsu, as in like teaching. I would argue they probably trained more before they became.
Oh yeah, generally
teachers.
that's true. I have a policy, bro.
Wouldn't
Especially
you have
like
to have done that?
I would assume
train
so.
more before you
but I'm
became a
saying you would
teacher?
imagine that if you did
You're right.
what you love
Generally,
to do,
that's
you
the
would do
trend.
it as
Right,
much
right,
as
okay.
possible. But it turns out when you enter into the profession, so I became a professor because I love doing research and I love doing all these things.
and now you don't do any research.
And I don't do any research. I literally am in the lab 0% of the time.
Yeah.
I know less about my own lab than most of my students do, my PhD students do. And I have to ask them, like, what's happening?
Yeah.
Because I'm busy dealing
only
with
so
the
much time.
administrative stuff. I'm busy dealing with
teaching.
writing grants, the teaching, all
The
these
curriculum.
other aspects the curriculum, all the other aspects that no one ever tells you about is part of pursuing your dream career, being a researcher.
Yeah, and it becomes all
and it
encompassing,
just
right?
sort of
the spoke,
takes up your entire life somehow.
yeah, the scope of it is
Yeah,
just
and I feel like in some sense that's true in all professions. When you hit a certain point in your career, you sort of transition out of what you did.
Well, even now, imagine me doing this 20 years from now. If I'm 50, for sure, there's just no way. Like, I can't be doing MMA training like I am now. I mean, it's just
I'm
impossible.
just imagining you at UFC right now.
I'm gonna try, bro.
Is like 41, right?
50 years old.
I'm gonna try.
Masters
What's
division.
Yoel Romero? What's he,
50?
44?
He's fucking 50, man. He's
There
pretty
you go,
close.
you know,
He's
it's-
like 44, 45,
But
43,
but is
something
there
like
a
that.
difference between?
But at 60,
competing
he's not going to be
versus-
doing it.
Well, one of the Gracie granddad. Like, did he?
Well, listen, you can definitely roll.
Crazy granddad.
Yeah, man.
I
Definitely
love
roll.
that.
That's
Oh.
his, street name.
You can roll into your 50s and 60s. There's no question. But I couldn't do Muay Thai. I can't do Muay Thai
Right,
sparring.
right.
I can't do
Yeah.
MMA. That's
Yeah.
too much falling body weight. It's too explosive. Jiu-jitsu, I think you can probably do until you're almost dead. As long as you can walk and move your body, you can do some form of
You
it.
can't tap if you're dead.
Yeah. But then,
You're
I mean, that's
hardcore.
like the
Undefeated.
ultimate level of.
After death, I'm undefeated, motherfucker.
just breaking arms. He never tapped. He's
Dead.
literally
deceased.
dead. Yeah.
You killed him with it. You know what's interesting is we were talking about doing the jiu-jitsu and going back to the training slightly, even though I'm kind of happy to talk about something other than the
It is
jiu-jitsu.
what it is,
I
man. It's
love
a conversation.
jiu-jitsu.
But going back to the training, I think you could roll. I think you should roll as a teacher. It's like kind of like keeping in touch with your craft, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you still drink some,
Well,
right?
I drink
you
every
have to do
beer
your
that leaves
tasting.
the brewery.
Yeah,
You know?
and you still have to be, for
Not
example,
every one,
if
but,
there's
like, every batch.
new, let's say if there's new things that are happening in your field, you have to be somewhat aware of them, right?
Yes,
And it's the
yeah.
same thing for me, right? As a teacher, if I'm not up on like the leg locks, if I'm not up on like the new kind of guard, even today, I mean, I've known about. Have you heard of the K guard?
No.
You haven't heard it? See, brown belt. Haven't heard of the K guard. I heard about the K guard like a
You haven't heard of
year.
the cake.
No, hold on, because I'm gonna sympathize with
Yeah,
you
no,
for
no,
a
no,
second.
no, 'cause
But okay, so
enlighten me.
there's trends, right? There's
Yeah,
always
yeah,
trends in
yeah.
jiu-jitsu. For example, when I started, like that was when the deep half was really big.
Oh,
That
yeah.
started to be the thing that was crushing everybody at competitions. Like leg drag started to come in, and then people were like crushing it to 50-50, and then people started to do berimbolo. And then after berimbolo became really popular, a lot of people started doing the leg locks. And then the Danaher stuff started popping, and then everybody's heel hooking. And then now the K guard is one of these new sort of trends. There's other trends, but
These all sound like dances, by the way.
if I can go in, if
Heel
I can
hooking.
go, if I can go into the weeds a little bit, like Danaher's system teaches inside position with the feet,
Yeah.
right? So like a butterfly guard. So both of my feet would be inside your two knees if like you're sitting on your ground or standing up. Danaher talks about to win the Ashigarami game, the heel hooking game, you need inside position on the feet. But Lachlan Giles has a slightly different system, and he just crushed it at ADCC.
Oh, yeah, I was watching.
And he
That was insane.
And he does a lot of his stuff from De La Hiva,
Yeah.
which is an outside
Okay.
guard. It's not an inside guard. And the K guard is sort of part of his system, the De La Hiva and the K guard for him getting into his heel hooks. Which
What is the K guard? Sorry.
It's just a. I mean, I don't know how to.
J guard came first.
Yeah, there's
Well,
really.
let's be honest. A came
A
first.
guard.
came
I
first.
can show you. I can show you after.
Alpha guard.
A guard sounds like a guy from
And
Denmark.
even
You'll have to
like
show me after this.
and even
I'm
like
kinda curious.
the worm guard, right? That's
Yep,
that's a
yep.
new.
Well,
that's
now
a new
that
thing.
Keenan is doing the whole squid guard thing
Squid
as well.
guard, worm guard.
I
There's-
think he's just gonna go through
and
the
there's gonna
whole
be-
animal kingdom.
and there's going to be
Letters,
even more.
animals.
I mean, Greg brought up the Eddie Bravo system. When I
Yeah.
started, that was popping too, right? And so there's always these trends in jiu-jitsu, and even after Lachlan won he got third in ADCC in the absolute, but he's my
Which is
size.
crazy.
He's
Which
my
is
size.
insane.
The absolute, and he
Insane.
crushed like multiple-time world champion.
Did he beat
90
Duarte like
Duarte.
first round? Like,
Yeah,
oh my
the
goodness.
first round heel hooks for two
Yeah.
of them
But is that-
against heavyweight world champions.
But is that a system that he's designed for himself against heavyweights that doesn't necessarily apply
I don't
to
think.
everyone?
Well, he trains with Craig. I mean,
He's his
he
coach.
teaches
Yeah, he's his
in Craig Jones. And
Who's a legendary sort of at this point leg locker, but he also trains with Danaher. And anyway, the point is that he's sort of it goes through these trends, and then now is a new trend, and he's able to hit heel hooks from an outside position, which is a totally new thing. And as my students are starting to do this K guard, I know what it looks like, but I don't know any shit. And I'm a coach; I do this shit all the time. So even I'm thinking, as
Should you
there's
be
new
admitting
information.
this to the public.
Well, you can't know everything.
Sorry, students.
right?
I know jack off.
Listen,
about what you're doing.
no, I definitely jack off.
these-
I don't
are
think we need to
they-
lie.
are they
I can't lie to the
reactionary?
people. Huh?
Are they reactionary styles? So, like, say you had traditional BJJ and then the Eddie Bravo or whatever system comes in. That seemed to try and undo or find some of the loopholes in traditional, right? As you have the worm guard,
A
does
bit.
the K guard beat
Yeah.
the worm guard? Is
A bit,
it scissors, paper,
because
stone? Is it?
It's
you know
just
what I mean?
a different leg entanglement from the system that's mainstream now, which is like the Danaher system. So he found a new way to adapt these moves to fit a new outside leg position. But the point is that it's at the sort of cutting edge, and it's just becoming a thing in the last few years. But I'm not an expert. There's no one teaching me that. I just have to take my time, like
offered.
you guys,
I
to
said
go
to
in.
you,
Exactly.
but-
Let me teach them K-guard, bro.
Yeah, man.
But I have to kind of go out of the proven path. I don't have people that I can ask about that because I don't have any Brazilian jiu-jitsu instructors who can teach me the K-guard. It's like only one of the instructors, he was from Phuket top team. I forget his name. Azima, it's his husband now. Oh, damn it. He's like the head MMA coach at Phuket top team, I think. And he came in and did a seminar and taught the K-guard. And then I'm seeing now it's getting this sort of big push after Lachlan submitted. I think Duarte. I think he did a K-guard.
Duarte, yeah.
I think he did a Delhi Hiva to K-guard back take, and then he went in on the outside heel hook, if I'm not mistaken. And anyway, point is for all of our trades, at a certain point, even if you're off, you're not doing your research, for example, like you've learned what you learned, people are innovating.
Oh, yeah.
And if you don't follow the curve, you're just going to get left behind. So you have to still keep your foot in the door, at least to some extent, or the times are
Well,
going to pass
that's
you
why
by.
That's why I go to conferences. I have to hear what other people are doing. I do my very best to jump in the lab and tinker around. It happens infrequently, but I do it. You do have to, if you want to be sort of the old guard is not going to be making new innovations in your area, right? And if you
We're
do
too young
wanna-
to be the old guard, right?
No, we're not.
It all ties.
What I mean is that when you feel like you're at that level where you're teaching, I feel like you do have to bring yourself back to that student level.
And it's also leading by example, right?
Right.
You need your students. Everybody should feel that there's a feedback loop that's going on here. Like, and it's not just the teachers. The worst thing are the teachers, even the jiu-jitsu coaches, right? That maybe they get a little older, they stop rolling, they get fucking fat, they get really out of shape, they stop training. If you want to ask them a question about the new guards, because listen, every student has a different game.
Yeah.
And if a student comes to me, I'm not a Berimbolo guy at all. But if a student loves that shit
But I'd like
and
to
they
point
want to
out,
come,
fuck Berimbolo.
yeah, we're not
put that out
Berimbolo
there.
guys.
Yeah, I'm gonna put that out there.
But if a student comes and he wants to play that game, what am I going to be like? Not in my dojo.
Yeah.
Like, that's also short-sighted because it does work in
Because
those
you said
competition.
it was a student that brought the K guard in, right? You said they
Was-
were getting, but which
they were
ties
asking me
back
about it,
to
and then I was like,
not just
I don't really
pouring
know.
the
Yeah.
information because
Yeah.
someone is infused by what they're doing to go and learn by
Something
themselves.
outside of-
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
you
then
can't
bring it
shut
to
down
class.
organic growth and organic
Yeah.
curiosity, right?
But
If I have a
feel
student
like
that wants to
that's
learn,
how you know you were successful. In my opinion, I know I've succeeded as a teacher when a student comes up to me and brings up something that I am unaware of. Because that means that they went, as you
Yep.
were just saying,
Yep.
they went out of their way to learn something about the topic you're interested in.
And it could have been anything.
It could
from
have been
what you told
anything,
them,
yeah.
you
That's
know?
organic
That
curiosity.
goes back to
You
the
can't force that, right?
infinitesimal kind of interest in anything. You know,
But-
it's just life is.
Again, it's back to, by the way, the Greek, I don't know if he's Greek or Roman, I think he's probably both. But
Groman,
Groman, yeah.
Josh Groman.
Greco-Roman.
So the guy's name was Plutarch, but
Plutarch. Oh, we're dropping Plutarch's
Sorry.
and probably false Socrates.
He was the one who
what I
was
said earlier.
man.
He was the one who was emphasizing the idea that that it really is about igniting that interest in people, and that's how you truly teach.
It brought me, actually, when you said that, I wanted to say something, but I didn't want to interrupt you. As like I was going to say, the number one metric that I sort of measure myself as a good coach is how many people did I start training jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Right? I
How
remember.
many of my students can I crush?
No, that's just an ego stroke. That's just an ego stroke, right?
Isn't a chance.
But of my students that I taught their first lesson and they're still training, for me that, honestly, like not just being fucking altruistic, like, I mean, I remember someone like Madeline, for you know Maddie,
Maddie,
right?
yeah.
She's beast. She's wrestling now and she's doing all this shit. I did her trial lesson.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then there's plenty of other students, the same thing. I did their very first lesson, and now they're thinking about maybe doing it as a career, or it's just a hobby where they lost weight, whatever the fuck. But once they get to that point, you know, somewhere around purple belt where I can see that this is a lasting impact on their life. When I know that I taught that first lesson, I know I did something right.
Yep.
Because I sparked that genuine curiosity. Because a lot of people can walk in the door and get crushed by this sort of situation, right? Because maybe they want it, but they don't want to
situation trains here.
train. And, you know,
Jersey Shore.
But I bet you didn't do that by mollycoddling them.
well,
I bet you did that by
Broke her arm, right? No,
pushing
I'm
them.
joking.
I bet you. Yeah, I bet
happened.
there was one lesson in that period of time where you made them realize what they could do.
Well, you talked about your teacher that said something really memorable to you
Yeah.
when you were in school, right? I have found that almost, if you ask people why they do the career that they do, most people will refer back to a teacher that taught them something that stuck
Yeah,
with them.
that's true.
It's like, why did you go out on this path? Oh, because X, Y, and Z. This person, this teacher said something, and then it sparked this curiosity. So for me, like, I was having this conversation with Major on one of the last podcasts. He was asking me, like, I have a strategy of what I do when people walk in the door here, right? Because I've said I'm not a black belt. I'm not like a world famous MMA fighter. If people want to go
Major's
train
saying
with a
this or
Thai,
you're saying this?
I'm saying this
Okay.
to him. I'm not a Thai, right? If people want to go do Muay Thai, they can go find a Thai instructor with 400 fights. If they want to be a jiu-jitsu person, they can go and train and evolve and train with the world champions or whatever, and the name of people, all the same. But when people walk in the door, I train with them first day. They don't. Nobody walks in the door without rolling with me like the first or second time max.
Actually, my first time training in Singapore, way back when, actually here, somewhere in this area, was I remember we rolled together.
Did you come to my class?
No, I think it was. Went to Jake McKenzie. Jake McKenzie was there as well, and he was the one who.
But I rolled with you, right?
Yeah, we rolled, and it was. It was not fun.
Juggernaut.
It was not enjoyable.
trifecta.
It was actually, I was a newly minted, so my going away present.
Was I a two-stripe or something at that point?
I think you were like three-stripe. brown belt,
Three-stripe already?
yeah. And
This
my
is 6 years ago then?
no.
Yeah, pretty close. 4 or 5 probably.
Four years ago,
okay.
roughly, almost
Damn, I didn't
three
do
and a
that.
bit, three and a bit years ago. So when I left the UK, my instructor at the time, Max Campos, gave me my brown belt, and the very first set of rules I had as a brown belt was with you.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was one of my
this
first
is new
roles
information.
as a brown belt.
Do you remember the role? Just curious. I don't remember. So just out of curiosity, can you kind of remember how it went?
It was in an entirely leg lock game.
Oh.
Not
it's
heel
sort
hooks.
of
It was
wrestling-
toe holds. Yeah. it was
Wrestling
not
background
pleasant.
as well.
Yeah, you're a
so-
toe holder.
It
You're
was-
a toe holder.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I'm a brown belt. Now I can do toe holds and knee bars and shit like that. So I was going after the legs.
Yeah, I
'cause
remember you jumping on toe
I'm
holds
more
for
a
sure.
lobe guy myself.
I'm more a fish hooker.
Yeah.
It was, I feel like, because I didn't know you at the time, I feel like that was a mistake. That was not the strategy to employ.
Did you-
I should have done anything other than what I did.
But you got a good toe hold, man. Like, don't discredit.
Yeah, it was.
the fact
it
that you
was-
go for him is a game changer.
I went for them
too,
because my old coach allowed purple belts who was rolling with other brown belts to go for those positions.
I let my white belts heel hook, bro. I don't give a shit. As long as my only rule is if the other student knows what they are, they're allowed to do them.
Okay.
They have to have been taught when to tap.
Okay.
Right.
Fair enough,
That's
fair
my
enough,
rule.
Fair enough.
Like
yeah.
once
Don't
they're
you-
there, then you can just go.
Don't you
right?
let go as well? As soon as
Yeah.
you get position, you let go?
Yeah, and then my other
Catch
so
and release.
It is, but
Hey,
my
man, I'm a fisherman,
that's what
bro,
I say. That's
so-
what I say. No, but my rule for like heel hooking in general is you can heel hook your student, your training partners, as long as they know what a heel hook is, and then as long as you know that if you get it and they're not tapping, you let it go.
Yeah.
Because then all the worst case scenarios
Yeah,
are
yeah,
avoided.
yeah. Spaz
And
out.
then as you get higher and higher, people get a higher awareness, and then you can start, and then people will play with the resistance and know when they should tap and when they shouldn't. And over time, you desensitize to it and you start to learn, right?
But going back to that idea
Sorry.
of suffering, that very first day of being a brown belt, my very first set of sparring sessions, which was with, basically because I showed up to a gym with a brown belt.
The tag's still on.
Which is always, yeah.
Basically, it was
And the brown belt starts,
had
black
not-
belt starts salivating.
I'm not gonna lie, like I literally had never worn it before. That was
Love
the
it.
first day I put that on.
That's hilarious. I had
Yeah.
no idea that was the case.
And my rules were basically with every black belt that was in the room, which was Mateos, Italo, Jake McKenzie, Marcelo, and then the other brown belt, which was you.
Yeah. That's
And
a
we
that's a
basically
tough.
just went down the line, and I literally just got smashed from the very first person all the way down to the very last person, which was with Luke. It was
I didn't
just
know
getting
that was the
absolutely
situation.
crushed. But it reminded me
Yeah.
that I have.
There's
so
levels
much
to
more
this
learn.
shit.
I have so much
There's
more
levels
learn.
to this shit.
And it is what keeps me going. It is that fear of missing out.
Yeah.
That
FOMO.
suffering you need to realize that. You need to feel that to realize what is missing out.
Do you
So
want to be the very best, the best that ever was?
that no one
By the way, it's hilarious you say that because I play that song during training all the time. I'll play the Pokemon theme song.
You got to add some live to win.
Bro,
to
I
your-
had, you know where I learned it was because when I fought in Singapore the last time at SFC, Will Chope fought on the same card, right? And actually, Will was supposed
Was that
to
his
be on,
walkout song?
That was his walkout song.
Oh my goodness.
Bro, I came out to True Victory or True Victory
Survivor.
by True Survivor by David Hasselhoff,
Yeah,
right? It's
yeah.
from the Kung Fury movie, right? Which is
Single-handedly brought down the Berlin Wall.
Oh yeah, by the way, yeah.
so it's from the Kung Fury
That's in
movie,
the
so I
history
thought
books.
it was gonna crush, right? And then Will Chope comes out to the Pokemon theme song, and I immediately knew I was fucked. I was like, "Dude, bro, in Singapore, it brought down the house. Like everybody immediately fucking loved it. Actually, he was supposed to be on the podcast last week,
Oh, shit.
but as he does, he took a fight every fucking 3 weeks. So he took a
fair
fight
enough.
and then had to go and do that. So we'll get him on maybe in January. But for the listeners, Will was supposed to be on last week. We'll get him on soon, maybe in January
I
or
have
December.
a quick question going back to your learning jiu-jitsu, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think Luke is an awesome teacher because he's had both learning and teaching instilled to him because you wrestled all the way through school.
And I used to be a teacher also.
Yeah,
well,
you
yeah,
were a
yeah.
teacher in
Yeah, that was
Korea
before-
as well.
But like in
Korean
Britain,
school. I taught it in Singapore, the Korean International
But you
School.
didn't teach jiu-jitsu at the Korean school.
No, but it made me such a better teacher.
Right.
The fact that I was a teacher before I started teaching jiu-jitsu. I'd already had years of teaching specifically experience. So again, going back to I'm not trying
You're
to
doing some
I know we're doing some gymnastics
philosophy,
here.
so you're like life is suffering.
but it's all coming
fucking huge now.
But it's all going to be circuitous. And my point earlier that I was saying of the reason the thing why people should come here from my perspective, the niche that I offer is that my focus is on teaching this stuff.
Yeah.
And if you go to a lot of people, I train every day. So at the very least, you're going to get a training partner.
Yeah.
I had a couple of major students that were coming in here like a week ago or 2 weeks ago to do some MMA training. And they were like, and they sent me messages like, you want to train? I'm like, yeah. So they came in, we did some wrestling. They did MMA sparring. We hit pads together. And then I'm trying to talk to all of my students that walk in. And I'm like, listen, at the very least, you're going to get a good training partner.
Yep.
Like, I'm good at teaching this.
Well, he's also
So-
good at fucking you up. Just
But-
because I did some of your MMA classes.
Oh, yeah, you came in and you did a little bit of Stronghold.
And I
Nice.
have some stand-up game, and actually the reason why I did jiu-jitsu
I'm more a
is I
stand-up
realized-
guy.
Yeah, I like my comedy session I'm here every Tuesday.
Love it, love it.
No. But,
See you next Tuesday.
Yeah, it's training with you has been one of those things where it's nice seeing both the stand-up and the ground game and getting
Yeah.
fucked up every time. basically.
Did you learn jiu-jitsu from a jiu-jitsu only person? Is what I was going to ask.
A jiu-jitsu only person.
So,
So,
like,
okay, so I had a
Do you get what I mean? Like a very traditional jiu-jitsu.
oh yeah,
Or like MMA
Practitioner.
jiu-jitsu.
So because of the very nature of my career path
Right.
is one that travels pretty much across the world. So I grew up in
Nice.
New York, and I started jiu-jitsu in New York City with one of the Gracie schools students taught
got a-
at my graduate school.
Good.
Oh, really? Oh, that was the connection.
So he taught. So there was this guy, Jason Yang. This is over a decade ago, but there was this black belt named Jason Yang, who is a very petite Asian person who fucked everyone
Ruin
up.
people.
Wrecked 'em.
Just
Yeah.
ruined
Yeah.
people, which is what was the inspiration.
Exactly.
Because he was
Yeah,
like
man.
not half my size. I'm being hyperbolic, but he was like half my size.
Yeah.
And he would just mess the biggest people in the room up. And
Satisfying.
I was just sort of like, yeah,
When you
that's
see-
where I
feel you,
wanna-
brother. I
Yeah,
feel you.
That's that
That's
moment we
what
were
I
talking
wanted-
about earlier, right? When you see that, you're like, oh, I need that in my life.
That's what I need. And so I did that. It was a Henzo Gracie affiliate.
gonna say,
That's
he
what
lives in
it
New
was.
York,
Henzo Gracie affiliate. So I did that for a while as a white belt, and then because of various things that were outside of my control, I ended up moving to Boulder, Colorado,
Noise.
which was
Yeah, noise.
phenomenal. And I happened, by coincidence, to move to an apartment that was within a 3-minute walking distance of the local Henzo Gracie gym.
Amazing.
Oh.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Serendipitous.
which
And a
was-
walking distance
it
to
was in
many
a
other
mall-
things as well.
It was in a Mall Easton gym, and he's now
Oh, yeah,
expanded.
yeah.
He's huge,
yeah,
so
I know.
he's got this huge training center.
It's like a walking distance and like limping distance back.
Basically. So I trained with Amal Easton until his group, until I got my blue belt, and then I was basically shipped off to the UK, and I trained with this guy, black belt Max Campos.
What was your connection to Jake?
So when I was
Because Jake
training-
McKenzie used to be
Yeah,
a
yeah,
coach,
yeah, yeah.
just for
So-
the listeners. Jake McKenzie was a coach here in Singapore
Exactly.
for not too long, like 6 months or something. But
So actually
he's
the-
a legendary half guard, one of the
yeah.
best North
So
American
he's
grapplers.
the reason why I joined. He's the reason why I joined Trifecta, which is where where
Met.
Luke and I originally trained.
Yep.
at.
Yeah.
He's the only reason why I trained there, actually. So Jake and I met in Colorado because during the Pan Ams, I think, of the year that I was there, Rodolfo Vieira, Jake McKenzie, and a few other black belts from Grapple Fight Team and GFT were training at Amal Easton's gym.
Oh.
And I took privates with all of them, as many of them as I could. And so Jake taught me a lot of his half.
Oh, so that's how you
game.
met Jake.
That's how I met Jake.
Who taught you the Kimura?
That I learned actually somewhat independently.
Okay, I was just curious if that was
So
Jake
he
or
taught
not.
me a half guard game. I loved it. I was a white belt at the time. It was amazing. And then we lost touch because he obviously went around.
Can I get another one too, Greg?
Yeah, please.
I'm getting
Although I'm
getting bone dry, bro.
Anyway, so I was in Colorado. I got shipped off to the UK, and then I went with this guy, Max Campos, who's part of Checkmat. And it was there that I ended up getting my brown belt. I spent quite a number of years there. Developed my Kimura game, developed my love Toriando passes. That's my favorite.
And mine too. And you're very inverty.
And
For the
I'm very-
people,
and
one of those.
I'm
for
one
the,
of
one of
oh, bro,
those.
for the listeners, the
Love
jiu-jitsu people that are
inverted game.
listening, you are never rolling. At least I'm never rolling with James if he's not upside down on his fucking
yeah.
head, bro. Like,
I've got a number.
bro, you're gonna get spinal bifida. like,
Actually,
literally.
I'm doing my very best to not go inverted. I'm trying to play. So I used to be a ground game person.
Just keep that as your back
like
pocket trick.
tornado
You don't
guard
want
or
your
something
game to
weird?
rely
Yeah,
on
okay.
it. You want that to be in your back pocket for an emergency. That's what I tell my
So
students
now
about
I
inverting.
use inverted guard when I know I've fucked up.
You fucked up a long time ago. As
When I fucked
Kurt
up, I
Osiander
go
would say.
inverted. That's my safety. That's my safe place.
Yeah, that's my. Yeah, exactly. That's your safe space.
When I go inverted, that's when I know
Upside down,
I'm
head
not-
away.
yeah.
When James feels triggered in jiu-jitsu, he goes to his inverted guard, his safe
Exactly.
space.
So I started mimicking a lot of a Kimura game.
Developing is fair.
Yeah,
for
fair
your
enough.
own
Yeah,
individual.
in some sense, so I learned a lot of Toriando passing from this guy, Max Campos. A lot of top game, a lot of inverted.
I don't even know any other passes, dude. All I do is Toriando. I don't even know. Like my leg drag is like blue belt. I have a blue belt leg drag. I have it like only pass I have good one is Toriando.
My go-to is Toriando. I will
Ball point.
knee
Ballast
slice-
point. Ballast point.
I will knee slice when I feel like, but I never get it. I always knee slice, but I never get it. But then to go back to Lachlan Giles, I watched one of his YouTube videos.
The power of
He
YouTube to
showed-
jiu-jitsu,
oh,
by the
yeah.
way. The power of
He
YouTube.
showed
God.
a knee slice technique, and then he backstepped into basically
The saddle, the
Hunter
inside
saddle,
Senkaku.
inside saddle. And now that's basically, if I'm doing no-gi, that's what I do.
Yeah, me too.
I will go for the knee slice with no intention of finishing it.
No, John Danaher killed it.
Only to try and fall back to the...
Bro, John Danaher killed the knee slice because all of his guys do that back step, but you can also do it from a leg drag. But you step in with one leg in the half guard, and then as soon as that knee, that's also kind of kills Jake's game because Jake likes to, Mackenzie, it doesn't kill his game because he does some gi.
Nothing kills his game.
But yeah, dude, his half guard is fucking.
This guy.
It's
right here.
terrifying. It's like, but it's
him
interesting
drunk
because it wouldn't apply, honestly, straight up, it wouldn't apply, and he knows this too. It doesn't apply as well no gi because a lot of his game is like quarter guard, half guard. He forces people to backstep. And if you backstep from the top position, you get into the honey hole, the saddle, the 411. It's got a bunch of different names. The inside senkaku. Yeah. If I'm knee slicing you and I step back and curl my knee behind your knee, you get into the inside senkaku. So if people are knee slicing from the top, it's there every time. So quarter guard is different now because if you go quarter guard and sit up for the underhook, like that classic style that Jake likes to do, that back step to the saddle, if you're no gi, in gi it's cool because you can't heel hook. So in that position is illegal. But in no-gi, it's a game changer.
Do a lot of the American, this still kind of ties back to like where you learn, because I feel like Luke has got such a good wrestling pedigree, right? That a lot of the jiu-jitsu that he does is very top-heavy.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That's
fair.
I'm always on top of Kwan, and he's always trying to invert.
Right.
Well, with him, I just pull guard because, again, I want to. So Luke triggers me.
So he goes to a safe
go
space.
back to my safe space. That's bottom game, inverted guard, and I shoot. So when I go inverted, something I've started trying to develop more is as I go inverted, I notice people tend to try and push more weight onto me.
By the way.
Oh, cheers.
And
Cheers on this new beer, by the way. This one's delicious, too.
It's
How much percent is this one?
7, maybe.
Oh, my
Probably
God.
This
7.
one's a bit
I'm getting pretty
heavy.
drunk. For the listeners at home, I'm pretty drunk, so we're cooking with gas here.
So
Keep going.
yeah, sorry.
No,
Go
it's,
ahead.
well,
Anyway, so
either
what I was
way.
saying is that something I've been working on a lot recently is from inverted guard, trying to so people put a lot of weight because they want to stack you. I'm relatively flexible for now.
You're really flexible.
For now, until I get too old to do that. I'm relatively flexible, so I'm comfortable in that inverted position with pressure. I've started working on pushing against them and going for the ankle, because as they are pushing up on you, they're light on their ankle. So I've been so as they're
when you're
pushing
on top,
onto you,
as you're pushing.
So they're pushing onto you on top. I grab their ankle, I push with my legs, and I go for basically an ankle pick almost.
Okay.
From inverted guard.
And then a leg lock.
And then I go typically for an
toe hold or something.
toe hold or
Right,
a
toe hold,
straight
yeah.
ankle lock or something of that nature. So that's what I've been.
But that's the good
working
thing
on.
about inverted guard is you can quickly bail out and attack. If you
Yes.
chill there too much,
Too long, and then it gets a bit
Yeah.
bit dicey.
because it's tough on your back and your neck, I think.
So that's what I've been. So basically, when I roll with Luke, I purposely go to my safe space, which is that inverted guard, in hopes that he puts pressure on, and I
use
pick
that
that
to your
ankle.
advantage, right.
And I think I've done that maybe once or twice.
I think you told me one time. You caught me in a toe
Once
hold
or twice, I
Yeah.
think I've done that. And then, but the problem is, and that's the beauty of jiu-jitsu, in my opinion. Once he realized that's what I was going for, game's over.
Yeah.
Because he no longer puts that pressure on me to give.
Especially the
that-
higher level people. Once you catch them once, they're like, "Oh, you sneaky fuck!"
Exactly.
I see what you're up to. I'm not gonna
And
do
then
that
after
again.
that, he just buckles down and just grinds it out.
Yeah, because I'm a smash passer anyway. So if you
Yeah.
wanna, I'll crush you in your neck for the whole round. Especially as an MMA guy, because as from a martial arts context, cool. Like,
Which
Yeah,
I feel
whatever,
feeds
right?
back
Like-
from
the
wrestling, right?
potentially.
Yeah.
Which is your style.
So that's
Yeah.
exactly what I was saying. Like, because he's a. So I find that when I roll with
You're
more
grinder.
classically jiu-jitsu trained
Drag,
people,
sweeps,
they
flips,
will put more pressure and give me the space to get that ankle. When I roll with people who tend to have more of a wrestling background,
Or if they know your game.
or if they know my game,
Yeah.
they tend to wait it out and they will smash that, basically crunch my neck.
Yeah, and you're
I'm
stuck on your head
inverted.
for like 7 minutes.
And I'll wait for that. Yeah. And they'll wait for the whole 7
Yeah,
minutes.
because I'm cool, man. I can
Yeah.
just. You're more uncomfortable than
chilling.
me. I'm just laying on you. Like I'm kind of stalling. I'm just laying there a while. Like
Do you feel that wrestlers have a better pedigree for jiu-jitsu? Not at all?
for
think they have a
for
better
MMA, yes. For
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu,
Right. I should.
Yeah.
It depends on-
Jiu-jitsu, I don't think so. For
I should
MMA, I do.
clarify.
Because
Well, they still do for if you have nothing, for sure. I mean, if your base is
yeah,
nothing
yeah.
and you go into jiu-jitsu, then definitely. I was a wrestler first.
Yeah.
So if you go in with nothing and you have a wrestling background, for sure that shit will
Because
translate.
I mean, we had like Asker and Maya, right? And it was the best wrestler versus the best jiu-jitsu guy, and Damien, fucking spoilers, but watch it. Like
Also,
one
he was here, so everybody
jumped
that
off
listens
the-
to
yeah,
this
what's
knows.
up?
Damien Maya was here, so everybody knows.
Totally.
Yeah.
But wait, he won, jumped on the fence. I guess the cage, and it was like jiu-jitsu,
Yeah.
and that's
Bro,
wrestling versus jiu-jitsu.
I was
and
in
you're
the
both.
stands. I was in
You're
the stands
both.
with like 10
Right.
Brazilians,
Right, 'cause
and
it
they
was
were all
here.
losing their shit. They were like jiu-jitsu, and they just started screaming random shit in Portuguese that I don't understand. But porra jiu-jitsu.
But do you feel like you're a new breed? Because I feel like Damien Maya is very classically. Like, how many days of wrestling?
But
has
he's
Damien
been an
Maya
MMA fighter in the UFC for a decade.
True.
This
and
is
he
the
learned to
distinction.
punch in the last
But
5.
okay, so in my opinion,
But Ben
Go ahead,
Askren's
Reed.
only learned a strike in
So-
the last 6 minutes. So
wrestling is just a different game. It has different objectives. It has different types of training to become a good wrestler. And for wrestling, it's all about. Well, I'm not a wrestler, but
Right.
my understanding of wrestling, it's about that speed, power, and persistence.
yeah, there's definitely a difference in the
And-
functionality of it.
Yeah, and as a result,
Explosiveness, yeah. The
So-
explosiveness, the
exactly
strength, the power.
and that is useful in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, there's no
and in
question.
MMA.
Well, even more so in
Yeah.
MMA, because I was talking about this on the last podcast. I don't need to, in MMA, I don't have to play guard, ever. Double fisted, bro. I don't need to play guard against you, ever. If my whole game is standing up, then your game isn't becoming passing my guard. It's keeping me down.
Yeah.
And the whole meta changes when your job is just to keep me on the ground. I'm not obligated to stay there and play guard. If it's MMA, I put my elbow on the mat, I post, and then your whole game becomes keeping me down, which is something that Khabib is a master at, right? He's a master at what you call in wrestling rematting. Right,
Is that
which
putting
is
their butt back on the mat?
yeah, exactly. You take someone down, and then
I
if
learned
they
the thing.
post, if they stand up, you take them
Yeah.
down. You're like in
Take away
jiu-jitsu,
their
people
arms,
will
take
just
away their leg.
lay back and play guard. But I
Or
don't.
invert.
Yeah, but if I turtle and try to stand up, and you can't break me down, and you can't keep me on the ground, the whole game changes. And especially so for MMA, there's a huge distinction between the wrestling, which is I was talking about with Alvin on the last podcast about the idea of escaping. Right, the IBJJF doesn't score an
Like,
escape
go to a
point.
different country. Fuck it. I'm out of here.
It's because in jiu-jitsu, the guard is the paramount, right? So, for example, once you take me down, you're on top, I'm on bottom. I have to roll you over and to get points, basically, or stand up and take you down, which is kind of weird because in martial arts or self-defense, if you take me down and I stand up and I get away, that is the number one criteria for self-defense, which is we're two people in a bar fight, right? We're drunk, swinging fists at each other. You just bum rush me and take me down. I'm not
Stand
going
up,
to play
separate.
guard while you're punching me from the top
yeah.
position, right?
Smash.
Maybe against,
Stab.
maybe
that's
against,
what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna
maybe
invert
against-
and I'm gonna
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna butt scoot to them until
Maybe against beginners
Bro,
and
your
shit.
tendon is ruined.
But if a strong person can like hammer
Yeah.
fist you or something like, and especially for women,
Yeah.
and this is the real where you draw the line for women, the ability to stand up with somebody on top of you and to clean break, they're not touching you, break away completely is huge. And in wrestling, you get a point for that.
That's why you pull them close and then.
Yeah,
Choke
because in
them.
wrestling, if I take you down, all you need to do is stand up and escape, so I can take you down. That's the whole game, right? That's the whole meta. So
Do you get a point for escaping?
yes, in wrestling you do, and this is how crazy the IBJJF rules are. In IBJJF, you don't get a point for reversal, and you don't get a point for escape.
Yeah.
Is the reversal a sweep?
No, this is the
No. It's
okay.
if you don't have a position,
Make it easy.
basically
Yeah.
a reversal is if someone's on top and someone's on bottom, and there's no actual position established, and then it suddenly becomes the opposite. Someone's on bottom and someone's on top.
Let's go for the white belts here, right?
Isn't every position pretty much established right now? You
Let's-
got one knee and it's half.
But let's get into the weeds here a little bit.
You guys do that.
Okay, you go do your thing, and I'll get into the weeds with Greg here. Quan's got a piss because he didn't go. Just stand up like a normal human being. Like
No,
he's
worm your way
trying
out.
to lizard out, doing his
Like a
inverted guard on
dope
the chair.
armrest. Let's go. What's up?
But so okay, kind of lost my train of thought here, but I know it's about standing up if we're doing MMA. So like in jiu-jitsu, you don't get points for reversal and you don't get points for escape. It's
Is
only
a
a
reversal
sweep.
a sweep?
Let me
Okay,
clarify.
sorry. That's-
no,
yeah.
that's the question,
Yeah.
right? That's the ultimate question. A sweep has to involve the guard. So for example, you're in top side control.
Okay.
Right? You're past my legs, you're on top, and you're in side control. If I bridge you over and get on top, that's not a sweep.
Okay.
Another example, if you mount me,
Yep.
right? You're on top, sitting on my chest, past my legs, and I grab your wrist and I bridge you, I upa you over my shoulder, and I'm on top now in the closed guard. That's not a sweep
Okay. What
because there's no guard
What about
established.
a scissor sweep? There's no
scissors-
guard there, right?
No, there is. Like if I scissor sweep you, I have one shin across your belly, and my
Oh,
other
I'm
leg.
talking about. I guess it's more of a takedown. If you're both standing, then you.
Leg scissors. Leg scissors. Is that
Right.
what you
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
So a leg scissors would be a takedown
Okay.
because we go from neutral to
Yep.
I'm on top of you.
Yep.
Even if I'm on top of you on my butt, for example.
On the back, right? yeah.
But to go back to I need some kind of guard in order for it to be a sweep. If you're past my guard, if you're on the top side control or mount,
right.
and I bump you over
Yep.
and get on top of you, there's no points for that, which is insane
Wow.
because it's a complete flip. Exactly.
It
It's
seems
a
so
complete flip.
weird.
I'll give you another example. Let's say you have me in a guillotine position,
Yep.
a front headlock.
Yep.
You're sprawled on top of me.
Head
yeah.
here or head
Your
here?
chest is on top of my back. I'm on my knees. I just shot a double leg on.
Which
Okay.
which way? Where's the head? Here.
Don't
or
even think
here?
about that, right? I shoot on you. You sprawl.
Yeah.
Okay. You're on top of me, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And your chest is on my back, and maybe you have my head.
Yeah.
Right. If I reverse you and I get
go.
into the same position, that's not a sweep because there's no
How-
guard. Even though I'm on top of you, I could spin to your back, I could choke you, I could do a lot of things.
But
That's
you'd
not
have
a
to
sweep.
break the headlock, right, and then move around to the side.
No, never a sweep because I don't have my legs around you. This is why the IBJJF rules are silly, because there's no distinction between a reversal and a sweep. In wrestling, if I'm on the bottom and I get on top of you, that's a reversal.
Yeah.
Boom, plain and simple,
Yeah.
regardless of what
Yeah.
my legs are doing. And in jiu-jitsu, it's not, which is crazy because if I mount
Is that
you,
where
if
guards
I mount
like his
you,
come in?
sorry.
Is that where guards like his come in? Because it isn't a points loss to say invert, right? Which isn't necessarily a sweep. It's still a guard, but the ebb and the flow of combat has changed in one direction and then another direction, right? So say he's in trouble and then inverts and now he's in a better position, but he's still on the bottom.
Yeah.
Is that a point?
Well,
for,
you make it-
for
you-
becoming more offensive in your.
No. You make a good point though, and I think the point that you're kind of alluding to is the fact that
I know nothing.
no,
but-
it's important to talk to people because you have a cursory knowledge, right? You've got basic. You're a fight fan. I mean, I can talk to you about this
I'm
shit.
a geek in all forms.
Yeah,
That's what it is.
But you've done a little bit of jiu-jitsu. I don't know, 20, 50 hours, whatever it is. But you've done enough to know some stuff, and then you're a fight fan. So you watch them for fun,
Yep.
which is important because, everybody that listens to this is not going to know everything. So you're raising very interesting points and points that need to be clarified. You don't need to assume that everybody is like a master, right? So if I have you in any type of guard, if my legs are around you in any fashion, right, then I roll you over, it's a sweep. If there's no guard, even if I reverse you, it's not a sweep. No points scored. Now, my sticking point is the escapes because the issue that I have, as Kwan starts to roll back in, and I'll hit you with this as you come in.
He's just going to invert.
He's going to invert.
But what do you
or
think?
Kimura Kwan.
And away.
So here's the issue. The only thing that I wish they would change about jiu-jitsu rules is the clean break rule, which is that if you're on top of me in any fashion, if I stand up and disengage completely, that should be awarded a point. One, because the game can still continue as it normally would, but it would ensure that the top person has to keep you down. Because, okay, think self-defense, right? We're both drunk. I'm a straight fighter. I fucking blitz you and I take you down and I get on top, right? What are the odds that you're going to successfully play guard and as a general person against maybe, let's say, a stronger person?
Start inverting
because
on
that's the
gravel.
point.
I was gonna say, I think what I would do is immediately invert and then.
While people can elbow you in the face.
Yeah, I would do that and just hope for the best.
Have you ever considered turtling and crying?
Yeah, that's what I would do.
I would invert. I would invert. And
Life
cry.
is suffering.
So let's do the
I'm learning
experiment.
so much right now.
As you're getting beat on in the face and shit.
Mercy,
So-
mercy, you win.
So now the philosophy of it is that it's a self-defense martial art in the initial stages, right? So now think about that. What can you reward more highly from a self-defense perspective than somebody is on top of you and you can stand up, get away, and get help?
So-
if it's grappling, if we're
Yeah.
standing up and we're striking,
So
whatever.
I agree
different,
with you.
yeah.
I agree with you on that concept.
The concept should be
idea-
go away and get help.
Yeah, sure.
Don't play guard and try to triangle
from
someone
a-
who's wrecking
from
you
a-
in the face.
Well,
What
think
I
about
would-
the
Unless you're a
safety-
black belt and they're a white belt.
What's
Like-
one of the first things you learn, right? Is how to safely get up.
Sure.
How to
My-
move.
my
escape,
concern.
hip escape,
My
right?
concern
I mean,
isn't,
hip escape is still on the side, right?
Yeah, but the hip escape, but that point is really important, which is to get your guard back. Because this is the fundamental, this is the cornerstone of jiu-jitsu, right? Especially when it pertains to the guard. If I pass your legs, You have nothing to push me away if I try to strike you.
Right.
There's no barrier between us.
Right,
If I
right,
side
right.
control you and I elbow you, or
Yeah.
or I mount you and I punch you, there's no barrier that you have to push me away from you. So the fundamental part of the
Except
guard.
these fucking tree trunks.
Imagine, right? You take me down. You're on top of me.
Yeah.
You're trying to stand up and I'm on my back. If my feet are on your hips, every time you rear back like that to punch, I'm going to push you with my legs.
Remove all that power.
Not only that, but I can kick you in the knees. I can kick you in the groin. If you lean down, I can kick you in the face. Right? That's the power of the guard as it's fit, which is you can't get my neck, you can't punch me if I'm on the bottom and you're on top of me. That's the fundamental of jiu-jitsu,
But
right?
you were talking about, like, I mean, again, coming back to fundamentals, right? The safety get up. Right?
The technical stand-up.
Technical
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same.
I mean, you dorks have a different name. I know I'm right, but you know what I'm talking about, right? That is getting up safely, creating space where you can stand up and either
Get away.
re-engage or get away.
Yeah.
Right? That's it. So if something you've learned day one, how is that not an integral part of the scoring
Oh,
system?
it definitely
So
is.
okay, so the
I thought you said it-
reason
I thought you said it
okay,
wasn't.
I want
No,
to give you.
I mean, it's supposed to be.
But the clean break
But
isn't
yes,
a po-
but
right.
that's not the. They
so
don't
my
score that.
my
Right,
my,
that's what I was saying.
Yeah, you're right. That's it.
Devil's advocate position. So I see where you're coming from, and I in part agree. But my devil's advocate position on this is that from a game design, jiu-jitsu as a sport, as a game.
You're gamifying the.
Who does your brother work for? That's just my bad.
He doesn't know.
Big part? Something.
He said
some-
game
some-
design,
some-
so.
some game design. Anyway, what I would caution against using that as a point to give a point is that people would use that as a strategy. They would purposely pull guard, let the person get on top,
and then escape.
and then escape.
Just grind out points. and
Grind
escape.
out points.
Yeah, but that's okay. Because then my job on top becomes not only
Don't
just
let him do that.
assuming that we're going to play this game, which is keeping you down.
How many times
Sure,
are you
but
going
I
to do
feel
Which
that?
is the whole fundamental part of
I
wrestling.
I would argue
Yeah,
that
Ben Askren keeps
If
people
I can't
down.
keep you to the ground, there's no jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. If you choose to stand up and I can't re-ground you, there is no jiu-jitsu.
I agree, but I
Boom.
worry that from again a spectator. So from
Okay,
a,
well
from a
then we're going.
spectator- right? No,
I'm coming from a self-defense perspective.
Sure, no, and
Not-
you're
not a
right in
points
that.
perspective.
In that perspective, you're absolutely right. But if you're in a perspective of trying to promote a sport,
Yeah. Okay.
which
then we're-
is meant to
Which came first? Defense or sport?
No.
defense,
These
for
are
sure.
two different things, though. Defense is not.
That's
sport.
fair. Like they make rules in the NFL that you can't do certain things because
Yeah.
it's boring. Like,
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
You know.
Or in judo.
Because it's boring.
Yeah.
So in
Yeah.
judo,
Yeah.
there was
Thank you
a
for reminding me. Yep.
huge change in the point scoring
That's
system.
why there's no Nuwaza now.
Yeah, because they didn't want
it was boring.
stalling. So they made it as dynamic as possible because more people would watch, more people would be engaged
love
with the
watching
sport,
judo.
which is what I would argue IBJJF or all these sort of sport jiu-jitsu coalitions are trying to promote, which is something that is engaging, something that people would want to invest their time in.
Okay, let me give you another
which is
shitty rule.
independent of self-defense. That's independent of self-defense.
Okay, let me give you another shitty rule and get your take on this, because you know, both of you guys, from both the self, like a beginner. This is why it's interesting actually, because we have some. Like Greg knows enough to know, and he's a fight fan,
Yeah.
so he knows enough to know what
He's
he's
probably
seeing.
more. You're probably
then-
more nerdier about fights in jiu-jitsu than I am.
He's definitely more nerdy about MMA, I would say.
Yeah. Oh no. I
Definitely a
don't. I don't watch. I barely watch any.
Okay, so dig this
Any of
point,
that.
right? Okay, let's say that I take you down and I pass your guard immediately, right?
Full?
I just double leg you straight to side control.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? And let's say that I take you down, I have to be in your guard, and then I pass your guard. Which one should be worth more?
Being in the guard and then passing the
In
guard
my
to side
opinion,
control.
I would say if you can. Take
Which is the more
someone-
dominant move?
I would say if you could take someone down and immediately be inside control. that
Yeah,
would be
why
better.
would you want to go
do
through
you-
the process
yeah.
of being in their
It's
guard?
like 2 steps versus 3 steps, right?
Yeah, so if you do just it in one step,
Yeah,
you should be rewarded highly, right?
But in yes and no, because it's like if you go from
Did
can
you
see-
skip
I
the
can see
step?
bo- but I
You
but I
skipped
can
the
see
step.
both arguments, right? So if okay, we're both standing, you take me down and immediately side control, right? That is one technique, right? If we are facing and then you go to half guard and then you go to side control, that's 2 techniques.
But in terms of the reward structure,
But
No, but,
the outset is the same except you've put twice as, but it also
Yeah, but you
depends on
skip
the
the whole
competitor.
step of going into the guard. Why would you ever want to be in the guard if you can
So I
bypass
would
the
argue-
step
so-
entirely?
so-
I'm not even talking about being in the guard. I'm saying going from like half guard.
That's
to
in the
side
guard.
control.
That's in the guard.
So
think
I
of
would say
full guard.
the reason
Because
why
they don't reward. Let me outline it for the listeners, right? If I take you down straight to side control,
Yeah.
I don't get points for passing the guard.
But that's
No, you
dumb.
don't.
But if I take you down and then I pass you guard, I get more
So
points.
the reason why I would say that is that I think the referee would have to know the intent of the person.
It shouldn't
who's
matter.
doing the
It's the
takedown.
result. If I take you down straight to side, okay. So let me give you the outline.
Do
Right?
you shoot and then you halfway through your shot, then you move the knee?
Here's
and
the
then
outline.
you go
right?
to the side?
If
or-
you're ADCC, which is the no-gi rule set, right?
I'm
and
IBJJF.
ADCC, and not only that, but let me give you the outline because I was talking about this in the last podcast, and I feel like it's really important to sort of clarify the differences and then give opinions on it. Which is that in no-gi ADCC rules, there's a thing called a clean takedown and there's a regular takedown. If I clean take you down, I take you down straight to
Onto
a
your
guard
back.
pass,
Yeah,
straight to a guard pass, and that they reward that more highly than if I take you down and then pass your guard.
Yeah.
Which makes sense, right?
It does make
they,
sense.
They also reward you for reversals
But I also
and
think that,
stand-ups. Well,
So
no,
I would
no
argue-
stand-ups, no stand-ups.
So I would argue it's more effort, is what you're saying. It's more effort to take someone down and then pass their guard. It's two separate things.
But it's about
Effort
the
points
end
versus
result.
skill
Let's
points.
say I give you a head kick, right? If I kick you in the head, should it be more points if I just plain kick you in the head, or if I give you a combination and then kick you in the head? The result is I'm past your guard, right? I've bypassed the whole thing. If my system is built upon taking you down and never letting you establish guard, how much more of a dominant move is that than if why would I go into your guard? That makes no sense. And if I reward you for taking you down and then letting you catch my ankle and then I immediately pass, like the whole thing is just moot. You've
Well, there
added
was
an
a
additional
good point
step.
that actually happened in the main event that just happened with Megan Shepard-Beno.
Say that again. What was that? I
I
couldn't.
nailed it the first
Something
time. I
in
nailed
my
it the first
ear, I
time.
feel
You
like-
guys,
Go
you guys
ahead.
were listening.
Matt,
And
what was it?
You guys don't know. I nailed it the first time. I have all the best words. But he had a great like front entrance scissor that took down like Haller or Caller. I just watched it and I forgot. the
Calvin
guy's name.
Cater. Yeah.
Again, I nailed it. So,
Yeah. First time.
but
Didn't
they
even-
both went down. They both popped up, right?
He did leg scissors.
Well, yeah, he did because he jumped in. His
What round was
legs
that? Was that
crossed.
second round?
I think it was either second. It was very quick, right? But he leads into the point that I want to make. So, okay, you've got a wrestling background. Where is combat sambo going to join the MMA crew, right? Because you've got Muay Thai, boxing, you've got jiu-jitsu, you've got all this kind of good stuff. But I feel like sometimes when there's a judoka in an MMA fight, people are like, oh, you know, he does judo, so
Yeah.
look for those takedowns. It's
It's
like, well,
different.
what are the? But every second guy now that's great is Russian, and they all know combat sambo.
And they all
When's
know
that gonna
judo too,
become?
because Putin's a judo guy. Putin's a judo black belt.
I mean, he's all right.
I've rolled with
Rolled him
him
a couple times. Yeah.
Not a big deal.
He doesn't.
Whatever.
Yeah.
He doesn't call
a
me
bear
anymore.
will take him. But it's that thing of like, okay, if you successfully complete something, but then both people stand up,
Yeah. Then it's pointless.
but you successfully completed a takedown.
Well, it's an act
Okay.
of dominance because
This
if
is why-
should there be a time limit
Yeah,
on
so
how
this
long
is
someone has to
why
be down
the only
before it
truest-
counts?
This is why the only truest form of jiu-jitsu competition is submission only, I think. Like, at the end of the day,
Like
the
no time
only-
submission only.
The
Yeah.
only if you
for
want
pure jiu-jitsu,
from the
yes. But for
purest
self-defense,
form-
no. Because those people
'Cause
will
you wanna make
fucking-
space.
Those people will flip around. They'll hang limbs.
self-
They'll
okay.
let people
But those
pass
are the
their
Can we
best-
bars.
agree?
the best.
So can we agree upon that self-defense is not sport? I mean,
Well, if you're in the UFC,
no,
if it's
I
MMA
mean,
related,
anytime
that
you-
is the whole nature of the
sorry,
game.
Anytime you make anything a competition, that's sport.
it changes.
Once
it,
you
for sure.
add
Yes.
rules
You-
to something,
you
that
dumb it
becomes
down.
Sports, that becomes sport. And sport is different than self-defense.
Yeah,
because in
there's-
my opinion,
there's definitely differences for
if
sure.
you defend yourself and you survive, you've succeeded. You've won. If I am in a situation where some drunk man or a woman smashes a glass and tries to
Point
stab
that
me,
mic right to your mouth, dude. Yeah, there you go.
the moment they try and stab me and I manage to get away without being stabbed, irrespective,
Stabless.
yeah,
Nailed it.
Stabless win. Nailed it.
irrespective
Yeah,
of
exactly.
how I obtained that,
stab
I've
him first,
succeeded.
obviously.
I've won.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the definition.
Not getting stabbed is a win,
But
for
that's
sure.
that's more like a will versus will thing. Like
no,
you're
no,
not
no,
coming
no.
into it like, I'm gonna fucking stab this dude.
I'm gonna do my
whether or not he knows jujitsu. It's like, what if he also knows jujitsu
Let me
and
just work
stabs
my
you?
stab defense. Like,
Can't touch me.
just move it further away, and then
Do we
robot
wanna
dick problems.
pause for 5 minutes? Are we
Yeah,
good?
you know what? Let's use this robot dick adjustment to take a pause.
I'm gonna
'cause
go
I need to
adjust this
pee.
robot deck.
Okay,
No,
so
no,
My microphone.
we're gonna take a
Okay, we're
pee
gonna
break here, everybody. So this is the Stronghold podcast number, whatever the fuck. I don't even know
10.
anymore.
10, bro.
I'm too,
It's
Double
I'm too
digits.
drunk.
Come on, man.
Bam.
It's
Number
10.
10. Cheers, everybody. We'll be back soon.
Yeah.
1.
Dude, you're gonna break the fucking thing in half, man.
And
Just go
we're
like
back with. I'm too strong, bro. My fucking muscles. Look at that.
Stronghold.
Look at that shit.
Stronghold on,
We're
on
going
that
zoom
clapper.
Wears me out to even do that. So we're back with the Stronghold podcast, episode 10, and as you can tell, we drank more in the break, and then we did questionable. We always do questionable things here,
Hey man, it's it is what it is.
but it's for the sake of having a good
you gotta
time.
keep continuity going as much for the listeners as for ourselves.
You know what I think? Like something like we were just talking about the Joe Rogan podcast, right? Obviously, you can have no doubt there's some inspiration. I sort of took the framing qualities and it's a martial arts kind of thing. But my thoughts are, as I'm 10 podcasts deep, that this whole thing can strike a nerve in Singapore. Because as I've done more and more and more, I'm starting to get feedback now from people that watch it, from places that I didn't expect. And I'm starting to get some messages, people messaging me online. And I really think that there's a niche here that's not hit. I mean, how often do you sit uninterrupted in Singapore and have 2-hour conversations with somebody where you're not checking your phone?
Can you hold that? Let me
You're
check my
not-
phone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Where you're not just constantly interrupted by external stimuli. And so that's the first thing. And then the second thing I think is just 3 people having a good time. Like, we're not filtering this. We're just kind of saying what we want to say. There's not...
No N-words, am I right?
We're trying... Yeah, exactly. Only if it's super racist do we decide to cut. But that's only happened once, to be fair.
I feel like super racist should actually be a superhero.
I should make a shirt, super racist.
Can you imagine how aerodynamic soment in a white hood would be, though, compared to Superman? I'm just
my
saying,
God.
from a physics
We should
point of view.
bring it back, is what you're saying. Bring it. Point is,
Yeah.
I feel like the podcast not only hits a nerve from the community, from the martial arts community, which was my initial niche that I was targeting, right? Is because to have this conversation uninterrupted, I've had one championship fighters on the podcast, I've had jiu-jitsu coaches, I've had friends, I've had all this kind of stuff. And I feel like there is a niche, especially in Singapore, right, for long-form discussion. Because you just don't, especially unfiltered. We're getting drunk as we're doing this. Like, we've already had how many beers? I've had it with other people. Like,
Yeah, I feel like how many times have you had drinks with friends and just wished the conversation was recorded?
yeah.
I mean,
fewer than before recording conversations came out. A lot of the times you'd be sitting around talking shit and be like, that was a great conversation.
Yeah.
And then you leave, and then only recently it's become this like, I don't know, there's a bit of ego there. If you want to like, I wish that was recorded and disseminated.
It sounds like
you know
that,
what I mean?
but it's just like, I mean, this is, again, another reason why I wanted to start the podcast. Like, part of it was all of that stuff I just mentioned, but part of it was an urge that I had to have these long-form conversations. Like, because you don't only, like, the potential to have these conversations is limited in a modern-day context with smartphones and all that kind of shit. But I just feel like I wasn't having enough of them myself.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really like, oh, I'm having all these great conversations. I wish other people could hear it. It was like, I wish I could have that. Even like watching podcasts, the ones that I listen to.
But busyness has become a commodity, right? Because you can say to someone, oh, do you want to do this, this, and this? And they'll say, I'm busy. And you automatically accept that because busyness has a value. What if you're doing fuck all? What if it's trite nonsense that you're doing for 3 hours?
And in
versus actually
Singapore,
having a
people
chat?
aren't doing that, man. People
mean-
just aren't having those kind of... they're not doing this for 2 hours.
We're obviously having world-changing conversations.
Bro, we're changing minds, changing hearts. I mean, it's more subtle than that, right? It's not that exactly on the nose, but it's something that I wanted to have.
Well,
And when people talk to you, they also, especially in a recorded environment like this, right? They tend to choose their words more carefully. The conversations tend to take on a slightly different context in ways that they wouldn't.
sorry, I don't choose my words.
That ship has sailed.
Sorry,
This is
I'm
just
not-
time to
yeah.
go.
Blah, 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 blah.
I'm just spewing out verbal diarrhea at this point. But I did feel like I wanted that for myself. So the podcast obviously this is something that I enjoy listening to, so it's why I wanted to do it. But the other thing is, I said this when I had Charmaine on the podcast. I had my wife.
Yeah.
When was the last time either of you have sat uninterrupted for 2 hours and had a conversation with your wife?
That's my lecture.
When the internet went out.
Sorry, those are my.
say
Mine
that?
is the wife.
When the
part.
internet went out?
Yeah, exactly. When the internet
Sorry,
went down.
So I get to have that every 2 weeks.
Whether it's
Or twice a
willingly
week, I
or
mean.
not. Willingly or not,
yeah.
right?
They are strapped in and they have no choice but to listen to me.
Well,
And it's enjoyable.
do you listen to podcasts?
I do.
You listen to podcasts, right? Of course you
I
do. I know.
love
I know.
listening to
Me too.
podcasts.
And how much of those is like? There's a certain percentage of it that you get is like intellectual curiosity, and then you also have like white trash podcasts, which
to
is
me-
like I want to listen to people just talk some shit. I want to listen to people just be unfiltered and talk about whatever
So
they're going
that's
to talk
it.
about.
That's exactly it. It's
It also-
when people are allowed to hang themselves.
Yeah.
Yep. Give
They
them all the rope in the
will
world.
Hang themselves.
And that's my demographic, ladies and gentlemen. That's what I'm going for here.
People will expound on the ideas that they think about and they extrapolate or they interpolate or whatever. But they say things that they would not, if they were restricted in how much time they had to say it, they wouldn't say what they would intend to say.
Could
they
we
want
have-
to say something.
Could we have rounded this conversation up in a tweet each?
No, it's impossible.
Yeah,
it's impossible. And I think that
That's why the urge for long form exists. Because
Exactly.
the culture,
Tweeting
But-
is, and things like that is so. I'll get back to you in a second. Sorry. Actually, you know
that's
what? I'll
fine.
get back to you now. I feel
okay, that was my point. What I wanted to say earlier was that all of pretty much what we have now stemmed from people sitting in a room having conversations that or debates that would exist for hours because there was nothing to distract you from whatever it is that you were having a conversation about. And it is just that. It's that only when people have the opportunity to express what it is that they are thinking in the entirety of what it is that they are thinking.
Yes.
Do they have, I guess I don't know, what I'm
If
trying
I
to say
talk
is
to
the
you-
opportunity to basically
Go
fully, go deep in what it is that they're trying to get at.
Like if I
There's
talk
no
to you
sound
for 5
bites.
minutes about jiu-jitsu, be like, oh, it's a life-changing thing that's so good for you, like blah, 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 blah. And, you can only skim so deep. But if you give someone 3 hours to then, expound on what they're talking about and why and all of the reasons and like, it's not like the three of us came here with a sheet of talking points.
nothing.
I was like,
Literally
we're gonna talk
nothing.
about this, and everyone
You
had
both
their
were
own
like, what are we
talking
going to talk
points.
about? I'm like, I have no agenda.
But it is what it is. But because that is the nature of a conversation. Because we are both simultaneously teachers and learners when it comes to this very small thing, and it's very circular and comes back to that whole thing we were talking about. But you raise something which makes me have a question, which makes me say something, and then you have a question, and how can you do that by yourself, right? How can you
Well, I think they
not
call
only
that
challenge
mental,
your own ideas, but you know what I mean?
And
It's,
it-
But I think they call that mental masturbation.
Hey, man.
Well,
Yeah.
no, but this is actually the point. Is like the nature of a podcast that's recorded like this kind of, to some extent, cuts out the mental masturbation. Because let's say Kwan and I are having a conversation at the bar, right? If we're in a group of people, we can only have our conversation genuinely for a minute or two before someone's going to interrupt. And it's like we don't think that our conversations are so ingenious that other people can't listen to it, but the nature of the group format sort of results in those people adding to something to the conversation that will derail it to a point where you can't return it to its original form.
Flow in jiu-jitsu. You
Yeah.
get two people that come together, both have different skill sets, both have different kind of walks of life. They both know things, they both don't know things, and they're coming together and they're clashing their ideas of both offense and defense and how can you make it work. And the same thing happens in conversation. Like your background and my background and your background are very different, but it can kind of, it's almost like waves crashing off a rock. It can kind of crystallize in this one moment where we all talk about this one thing, but then as the spray develops, you're going off on this tangent or over here, or that reminds me of this thing. And just to be able to sit down and not necessarily work things out or work things through, but add weight or credence or to get like not necessarily backup, but like to be able to find people, because everyone has their own ideas in their head all day, right? And what do? Do you just live with your own ideas in your head all day, or do you try to put them up against a wall?
Yeah, it's
see
not
how they
satisfying unless
rebound,
you
or,
have,
you know what I mean?
yeah, a
It's
counterpoint.
like you have to. This is the fucking dojo of the mind, bro. It's like you gotta roll through it, because
even
you
if
gotta
it's
really
But I
even
feel
if it's
like-
simple, even if it's simple shit, right? Like I always say that this podcast
There's
is
always
like
nuance.
martial arts, drinking, and talking shit. And there's a certain amount of talking shit that is just fun to watch or to be a part of or whatever. It doesn't need to be profound. It doesn't need to be like, we're not reinventing the wheel here. We're not giving these thoughts that no one's ever had. We're just giving a vessel for people to listen to. Even if we're talking shit about, we're drunk and we're just talking, cracking jokes, saying whatever, like that in and of itself is something that lacks a lot if you don't have
It's
long
just
form
flexibility and movement. Like, you have like comedians that have done the same set for 10 years, right? They knew they crushed it once, and then they continue doing the same set because it kind of crushes for 10 years. Great. It's kind of successful, but how kind of new and nuanced and adaptive is it? Like, you talk about bringing up the K-guard, which I'm a professional in, and I am so... He doesn't even know the K-guard, this guy.
Fucking pussy.
So
What am I gonna do?
just give me back my white belt.
All your
Gladly,
jiu-jitsu is useless.
gladly take that. I gladly
But
take
you know what I
that.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's that kind of... it gives you a canvas on which to throw oily water and see what sticks and what moves, and then someone else can come and not necessarily judge your work, but add to it or remove it or question it or something like that. And having a questioning persona opposite your views is so important. Or else, you sit in your little bubble and you think everything you think is right, and then you become a total dick.
Yeah, yeah.
Or asshole.
Whatever.
I'm
We're
not,
not binary here.
but that's either 1 or a 0.
Hey. I said we're not binary, you asshole.
1's and 0s, dicks and assholes. I'm
So
childish.
I wanted to get your take on something, James, before we. I know you got to fuck off soon
I
so
do.
sorry.
I do.
because we got a few minutes left.
No, I've got 4 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. So let me exactly. Well said,
Yeah,
James.
yeah.
So
I've
in
got
3 minutes
4
59.
And
I
setting
think my
us
wife
up.
just texted me, heading
out.
back soon.
Oh, well, that means you better be heading back soon, too. So, before you go, I want to pick your brain on, like, one last subject, and then after this, we'll bounce. So, you're an interesting point, because you're like me. You're a teacher who came to it after acquiring the skills,
Yeah.
and then later became a teacher.
Yeah.
What do you think, you teach at NTU, the jiu-jitsu program there as well, right?
No, I help.
You help.
Teach.
You help.
They have. So I'm technically, at least legally, not allowed to be hired.
Okay, so
For
he
any
in
job-
no way has done any work
have-
else.
exactly.
Listen to me. He's done nothing. Don't sue him.
What is
please.
this NTU jiu-jitsu
So
you talk
legally
about?
speaking, I'm not allowed to have any job aside from being a professor at NTU.
But on the side, bro.
But
What
on the
about-
side,
bro,
I
curricular.
help.
Look what I'm saying, bro.
Yeah.
On the side.
On the side, I help
think he's
teach
having
the
a stroke.
students. I help these students at NTU some jiu-jitsu.
So what do you think? Like, I'm most interested in you in the sense that you were a teacher. Sorry, Greg.
I'm joking.
You're
It was
boring.
easy. It was right there.
You're an excellent human being, James, and I haven't asked you questions. Greg, go fuck yourself.
I'm out.
But I wanted to ask you about your take on teaching specifically, and then sort of what we talked about earlier, but becoming a sort of expert in your trade and then going back and teaching it, and what you think, how that could apply to martial arts now, given the experience that you've had teaching, and what that means. Like, what's your experience, I guess, from going through and learning the craft and then teaching the craft?
I would say that anyone who wants to become a genuine expert in their craft needs to experience teaching the craft. I don't think there's any expert out there that exists without having spent some time. I'm not saying it has to be a predominant amount of time, but they had to have spent some time teaching the craft, because teaching something is the only time where you question whether or not you actually understand what it is that you're
People
saying.
also ask you questions
being
that
questioned.
maybe,
all the time. I always tell my students the same thing. The hardest questions that I have difficulty bullshitting my way through is the most fundamental questions. Questions like, why? Why is it this?
Yeah.
Why is it that? Not like, what is the answer?
Point that thing right to your mouth there. No, just
I
wanna
can
make sure you're
answer
caught.
questions like, what is the answer to this? Because I can recite whatever the solution
book
method
says
is.
or whatever,
Yeah,
yeah.
whatever the book says or whatever the rationale that I had was to get to the answer. The hardest question is, why is it that you set up the problem in that way? Why is it that you assumed this?
It's like the framing of the question rather than the answer itself,
When-
right?
When people ask that question of why did you frame it in that way? Why did you approach it?
And that changes the
way?
answer, right? How you frame
Exactly.
the question.
What is a teacher to you? If I say, like, what do you expect of a teacher? Someone that will answer your questions. At least that's my, like, dude, they used to drive me nuts as a kid, right? Is the people not having
So
questions to
I would
answers.
challenge
Okay,
that. In
yeah.
my
let's hear
opinion,
it.
a teacher is someone who inspires someone to pursue something.
Okay.
Doesn't matter what it
fair.
is. Yeah.
I think as a further
Inspiration,
one rung
how?
further along the.
It doesn't matter how they inspire them. In my opinion,
There's
a
some-
teacher is
there's some
one
truth to
who,
that. Yeah, there's
one
some
who
truth.
inspires someone to pursue something. Because like telling someone something is true or
But
not
there's
true.
to teach
But
you.
is
That's the verb, right? To impart knowledge on a particular subject.
Does inspiration
Yeah.
Inspiration
come through?
You're gonna have shitty teachers that don't inspire anything. That
Yeah.
are doing. They're teachers.
Yeah.
Right. You're thinking of it
Repeaters.
from
I
a
don't
higher
know. I
plane,
feel like-
which is fair, because that's true. There's some truth in
Maybe
that.
so. What I tell my students all the time is that maybe 100 years ago, knowing something is valuable. The fact that you could recite a poem, or the fact that you know the definition of a million different words, had value, because at that time there was no free access to information.
Yep. Yeah.
But
Totally.
in this day and age, we've elevated beyond that.
We have things like Yahoo.
Exactly. You have Google. If you want,
Yet we also have teachers
No.
that can't
If you wanted
replicate the
to-
job of the search engine. Right?
But-
if you wanted to
Yeah.
know facts, anyone can find information anywhere in an instant.
But they can't teach you a
I-
subject.
I know
But
that
to
I've
know
Googled.
the connections between different concepts
yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
is something that cannot be found by just knowing things.
Yeah,
and that's
yeah.
a skill.
That's
that I
yeah.
think
You nailed it,
teachers
bro.
need to-
You nailed it, and you
That-
said it very
that comes
eloquently.
with- but does the flexibility in knowing a subject reflect off your students? Because you've gone through the gamut of 1 year, 2 years, 4 years, 8 years of hearing all of those questions. So now you have an answer to those questions.
Okay, so there are some questions that have canned answers.
Right.
That's just
okay,
a sort of a survival tactic. Of
There's some binaries, right?
Yeah,
Like,
there's some things
there's some
that I
laws
do
that are
that
indisputable.
are I hear again and again and again, and I use it as a survival tactic. But there are other things that make me reflect on what I genuinely understand.
And does that mostly come from introspective things?
It's more
or
introspective.
Oh,
So
interesting.
students who ask questions
Eat a
like,
dick, students.
Yeah.
You don't
No,
mean
no, no.
nothing.
So the students, in my opinion, the best students ask questions more about why
Yep.
than how.
Yeah.
The students that ask how are pretty
Like you understand.
Basic. It's
yeah,
basic
it's
understanding.
Why
easier
is
to
A to
answer.
B?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Answering how do you get from A to B is easier to answer than why do you
Yeah.
get from A to B.
Yeah. Well, can I
Yeah,
simplify
jump in.
this?
Yeah.
Okay, think about jiu-jitsu, right? Our community that watch this is mostly
Why are we
jiu-jitsu
talking
people.
about MMA?
No, hold on. I'm gonna tie it into his point.
I don't do MMA.
Yeah, he
I
only
do
does jiu-jitsu, bro. He
jujitsu,
inverts, bro, and he puts
uh,
his fucking
no,
head
fucking-
right between my
invert
legs.
away from it?
I can hammer fist that head all day while he's upside down. So,
Yeah,
but
that's
like,
why I stick to jujitsu.
Yeah, exactly. But you've got a decent striking
I
game
gotta
as
keep
well.
this face pretty.
Yeah, it's your moneymaker.
It's my.
But like
Nailed it.
something like the hip escape or the bridge, right? If we take it to the fundamental parts of jiu-jitsu, right? The hip escape and the bridge are the most fundamental aspect of jiu-jitsu. It's the it's the cornerstone of your movement, your basic baseline movement, right? If we extrapolate that further, okay, well then you can
space get away.
make space get away. But then you can talk about the guard, and then it becomes this all-encompassing, and then the various kinds of guard, and then you can get lost in the weeds, right? But if you stick to the fundamentals, like this is what a hip escape is. Well, a white belt can show you, right? I can show you a hip escape.
Shrimp up and down here, bro.
Yeah, you can shrimp up and down this mask 20 times.
Yeah.
Right? And a white belt who's trained for 2 months can show you a hip escape. And they can maybe even show you a textbook hip escape. But how they apply that knowledge to the overall game is a total game changer. And furthermore, how they can teach that methodology to a large audience and make it receptible and something they can understand.
Which is where the how, is where the how becomes the why.
Yes.
Yeah. So I want to jump on that. So one of my favorite things to do. So I love playing bottom game. I love inverting. But one of the things I enjoy doing is letting people knee shield slice, knee slice out of my guard. So I have a knee shield, and they will knee slice out of that.
Yeah.
To here?
Yeah.
You sort of force
so
the knee
my
the knee
I
slice.
want them
that's
to
luring
knee
someone
slice. I
into
want to
a game.
lure
It's
them.
setting a trap.
Yeah. I want them to knee slice because when they knee slice,
Bam.
I push them away at just the right time so that I can attack the arm.
Is that against the ribs? Oh,
Oh yeah, that's
No,
your
no,
Kimura. You motherfucker.
Yeah.
as you're
so
describing this, I
my
know
favorite
exactly
thing
what you're
is
talking
when
about.
they knee slice
I know,
out,
I know
I have
exactly.
the opportunity to either attack the Kimura or the armbar directly.
Yeah.
And-
can I just, sorry,
Yeah.
layman. So, when you said you like the knee slice.
I
past
like
you.
to
To
let
people
them.
knee slice him.
I purposely
because-
set them up so that they can knee
You
slice
push
out.
their knee out.
Exactly.
You let them free
I
it.
purposely let them to set up the perfect knee slice.
So the focus
knowing-
is like, I'm crushing this knee slice right now,
Yeah.
but I don't care where
You're
my
gonna tear your
arms
part.
are.
Bro,
Yeah,
you're killing me right now.
exactly.
Okay,
You're
I
killing
get you,
this
I get
knee
you.
slice.
Yeah,
Please
yeah,
continue.
Yeah,
As you're
please,
setting a
please
trap.
continue
like
this
the baseball
knee slice.
choke.
Yeah, same thing.
Right?
I mean,
So
there's
like,
those
oh,
are
I'm
traps.
passing
So
you.
I
Why
want
can't I
them.
breathe?
I want them to knee slice so that I can set up the next position, which is my armbar from the knee slice.
Yeah.
And
Which is high level jiu-jitsu. You're baiting.
yeah, it's
You're
sort
setting
of
traps. You're baiting.
yeah. So
Masturbator over here.
Yeah, you're a masturbator, bro.
really jacking that up. Anyway,
I'm really jacking off that knee slice, man.
yeah. So I set that up so that
I'm a
they can
team.
set up the knee slice, and then I can go for the armbar. And then it's always a surprise for sort of blue belt to white belt level. And they go, "Oh, I did the knee slice perfectly. Like, how did you get that armbar?" It's
You're like, oh, bitch.
Yeah,
oh,
exactly.
bitch.
It's
you
like-
think you.
I know that is
think
what
you
you
do,
are
but you
going to do. So that's why I set this up so that I can trap your arm and get the armbar.
And is a black belt sitting there like...
No,
I
no,
can't-
they never do that.
Well,
no.
no. But what I was going to say is like...
The levels.
But when you
right?
get to it, are you just like, I can't fucking wait for this guy to bait my fucking knee slices.
Yeah.
So he
No,
does
no,
this,
no,
and then
no, no.
bam, I got him.
The black
So
belts. then
you know what I mean,
usually
though?
when I
It's like another
spar,
step
yeah,
on top.
exactly. So when I spar with a black belt, and I let them, I give them, I beg
submission.
them to go for the knee slice. They never do.
Yeah, because
They
they.
backstep out.
Especially if they know your game.
Yeah. They backstep out and they pass my guard that way.
Yeah.
So it's like it's again they know
Levels to the shit.
exactly. It's the
It's
different
almost
levels.
like fighting isn't just brutish.
Yeah, that's
It's almost
fair.
like you need
No,
to think
yeah,
about it.
Yeah. It's almost as if there's some intelligence
That's
behind
required for this.
Yeah.
Well, Quan, I don't want to keep
My-
you late. I know
my
you have a
past-
strict
yeah,
you have
I
a strict
do.
time frame, which is cool.
So I have a
You're gonna turn into a
You have a new
pumpkin.
child.
I have
you
a
have
new
a new
child.
child, and your wife, fairly enough, is like, "Hey, I want some time off," because she had the fucking baby, and you just jerked off, basically, and then you all of a sudden had a baby. So.
Well, I did.
What did you do today? I came to talk shit and got drunk.
Yeah.
What did you do?
This is
I had a
gonna
really
be-
good time just splooging aimlessly. Point,
This is
actually
gonna
not,
be really
'cause
bad, but
you-
yeah, it's basically that.
But you.
But
had a
now I
plan.
know that you play inverted, so when we roll, I'm gonna face stomp like a motherfucker.
No, you're not.
What?
You're.
Is that not allowed?
Okay, so Kwan, we got to get you out of here, bro. I don't want you to stay late, but maybe Greg and I will continue on for a little bit longer, and we'll wrap up. all of this
I'm
shit.
gonna leave this here, 'cause
Thank you for
Fair.
coming on to the podcast, man.
That is
this
a
is amazing.
respectful. Can I just
hope
point out
I
that
am
he
back
did
in-
not finish his
I-
beer?
Can I pull a plug on this?
Yeah, plug.
Yeah, man.
anything you
And this
want,
is
bro.
for you
plug's
as
right there.
well.
Plug it in.
November 12th, we will be having a beer brewing competition at NTU.
Oh shit.
November what?
November 12th.
That's
It's
like 2
Tuesday.
days.
It's in Tuesday.
I
It's on
can't brew
Tuesday.
beer in 2 days.
No,
Oh,
no,
you
no,
fucking
no.
weak
It's
ass
not,
bitch.
It's meant for the
What are you-
undergrads at NTU to
Okay.
brew beer.
Well.
I hope that you can show up and be a part
do
of
it,
it.
man.
Oh, put him on the spot,
Uh,
motherfucker.
Can you send me, yeah, can you send me his contact?
Yeah, I'll
Totally.
send-
I'll-
for sure.
I'll
Yeah.
send you my contact.
I'll
bro.
definitely.
What a pleasure.
Making friends, man.
gentleman.
Making friends.
Okay.
Guys, this is
Friends.
the Stronghold Podcast, episode 10.
man.
James motherfucking Kimura Kwan.
I'm gonna be
James
back.
Kwan.
Oh yeah, so
Come back
at Kimura Kwan,
Are
if
you-
you
are
want to
you
go
fine
for
over- are you-
Instagram.
Killer Kimura Kwan.
No, it's just Kimura Kwan.
So
so my game
not
is
triple
all
K?
about Kimura tracks.
And I can vouch for.
Yeah,
I said
yeah,
bait.
yeah.
I can
I've-
vouch
I've-
for Kwan's Kimuras
So
that they're quality.
okay, Luke has probably submitted me more times than I've submitted him, but the only times that I've ever submitted him has been two things:
Toe hold.
ankle locks or toe holds. So foot game or Kimuras. Those
Yeah.
are the only two things that I've ever got him.
Fair enough.
Maybe
Damn.
like I think I can count 4 or 5 times I submitted you compared to the. I can't even count the number of times.
I
you
believe it was
submitted me.
1827.
Jiu-jitsu, brother.
It's just
That's
that's just
jiu-jitsu.
the nature of jiu-jitsu.
I ain't
Roll
mad.
dice.
Bring it on, brother. It's good
See you
stuff.
around?
Legend.
James Kwan,
Gonna head out.
legend. Cheers, buddy. Thanks for coming in, and we'll do it soon.
I'm glad we
we'll do
talked
another
so
one
much
soon.
about the chemistry of beer.
We got
Off camera,
We got a
yeah.
good solid 20 minutes in there. Okay, everybody. Stronghold Podcast episode 10. We'll be back soon. And this is episode 10 of the Stronghold Podcast. And we're back, Greg, with the thing that we don't even know the name of.
It's the
We
the
settled
clacker,
the clapper.
for sure.
What did you call it?
Clapper snapper.
The clap
Clapstick.
stick.
Yep.
Kwan called it the. What did he call it earlier?
Got to get that clap.
I don't know. No one knows what that's called. If you know what that's called, then fuck you. Honestly, right? So we're back, and thank you, Wugong, for sticking around. This thing is we go for a long time. It's been like 4 hours, and Wugong has to set all this shit up. By the way, the Wu Gang, my producer of the podcast, is the shit.
Hashtag WUGANG.
And we're getting him a mic, which I told him he should get because he needs to get his opinion out there. God damn it, because we talk about him all the time.
Fuck yeah.
So the Wu Gang, guy, I'm going to make a shirt.
Wugong.
A Wugong. But it's got to be the Wu Gang. Because only white people watch this, dude. Only white people watch this. No one knows what the fuck. His name is Wugong. For you 3 people in West Virginia that are watching.
What's up?
The Wu Gang.
How y'all doing?
Anyway, so we came back to do our last beer and finish up. Thanks, Wugong, for sticking around. I appreciate it,
Last
man.
beer of the podcast, for sure.
We're going overtime now. So
Well, we're going to revert back to the Ballast Point Sculpin IPA, one of my favorite beers. I've got...
is that the second? Oh, we're back on this one. Okay, let me finish this. This is the next
sure.
The Ballast Point.
So, the first microbrewery I joined in Singapore was called Jungle Beer, and it's based out in Sembawang. And the guys that came to rig it, or the guy that came to rig it, his name's Alan Shepard. Shout out to the absolute juggernaut of brewing.
Tag these people in the video, man. That's
Will
how you-
do, man. Will
That's
do.
how you get people watching.
Well, it's not about that. It's just about paying respect. you
But
know.
exactly. But
He's the same guy that I
spread it
went to
forward.
Barcelona with, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
Which is what
Legend.
led to your brewmaster.
Dude, absolute legend
Yeah,
in this
fucking
industry.
shout that dude out, bro.
But I remember going to the Ballast Point, because this is around Escondido, California. All the beers that we've drunk today are from California,
Yeah.
right? The Coronado, the Green Flash, blah blah.
Oh, this was my favorite one, the India
It's-
Pale Ale.
Isn't it?
I said it earlier on the. I didn't even realize until
It's an
now
IPA, bro.
which one we were
IPA,
drinking.
bro. This Ballast Point Sculpin, because they also
can you
have
get
a grapefruit Sculpin.
Can you get it
at
everywhere?
all your local IPA
They have this everywhere.
retailers. I'm not
any
going to go
craft beer
into
place.
distribution companies.
Mm.
But there were a couple of beers that got me into brewing, right? One was, it was called Bishop's Finger, right? And I was in the UK. I know, right? It sounds
Sexy
super-
name.
Bam, I wet
disgusting,
myself.
bro.
I basically slid off my chair. No, but it was called Bishop's Finger, and it was this craft beer, a beer that was crafted. What?
As
And
they
I'd
are.
never come across this thing before, and I tried, and I was like, "Holy shit, this tastes
Baron's
amazing."
finger, Bishop's finger.
Bishop's Finger, yeah. Slightly chocolatey. No, it's not. That was a joke.
Oh, bro.
So, and that was given to me by a friend of the family. They're like, he was like, "This is what I drink. Have you ever had one of these?" I was like, "Is it a Guinness? You know, is it a blah 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 blah?" I'd never tried something that was small batch, artisanal, bespoke, blah 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 blah. So the Bishop's Finger and the Sculpin to me were two moments in time where I was like, "Holy fuck!" Like, everything has just changed.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? You
Yeah,
know,
totally.
so like,
You
Bishop's
just got the
Finger's like,
spark in your craft where you're like, whoa.
There's like beer that tastes like slightly. I can't even remember the style of Bishop's Finger. I think it was like an amber or like a Scottish mild or something. It was like, wait, it's not yellow fizzy stuff that you just get this much of, and then you drink that much, and then you get another one of that much. You know, it was like all of a sudden you added nuance to a thing that I thought I knew fairly well.
Yeah.
Right? It's like doing jiu-jitsu all your life, and then someone being like, "Have you tried leg locks?" You're like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
Have you heard of this thing
nonsense.
called leg locks?
Totally. And to me, this was it was
There's a turning
both
point.
the sweep and
right?
the armbar for me
Yeah.
in brewing, because it was a classic example of something that was new to me, which sounds weird because how do you have experience of what is classic and a new concept? But immediately I was like, "Oh shit, this is benchmark." Does that make sense? It was like, this is so new, so well crafted, so well made, so put together, and captures a moment in time. And to me, Ballast Point Sculpin IPA was that, right? Sure, Ballast Point.
That's
hey man,
that's what we're drinking.
Ballast Point.
Ballast Point.
They've been bought over, right? So by a bigger, larger company. They also do.
I haven't even tried it yet. I'm just realizing. Oh wait, I had it earlier,
it's-
but I haven't had this one since I opened it.
You get a fresh pint of this at their fucking tap room.
Yeah, dude, this is
In
good shit.
I mean, we're not even drinking out of glasses because we're fucking plebs, but or peons. Pick your pronoun. But regardless of what happens to this beer, the story that it has after I met it, I will always have the story of before, if that makes sense. So it's like this became such an integral part of brewing to me, because it was, like I said, it was classic. It tasted good. It was beginning to be juicy. It was slightly grapefruity. I mean, it's kind of nuts that you can take a vine, right? Add it to some fucking sorry for swearing.
You can swear, bro. This
My
is
bad.
YouTube. We don't give a shit.
Added some like sugar water, right? And then maybe make it hot for a little bit, and it tastes like grapefruit.
Yeah, it's like a wine or a beer or something.
Yeah, or the same compound that exists. It tastes like grapefruit at this concentration. It tastes like lemon at this concentration. It tastes like pomelo at this concentration.
It's like you're down that path of mastery, you know.
Well,
and when once you know enough, like you were talking about this beer and how it like was a turning point for you.
Mm-hmm.
Once you have that, even like let's say you're a jiu-jitsu blue belt or something.
so good.
Once you hit that triangle or you hit that back take, and then like that's your move. Everybody's got a special move, right? It's like something that they discovered early on.
Ezekiel choke, baby.
See, yeah, that's your Ezekiel choke, right? Everybody's got some move, even in Muay Thai. Like they have some jab or cross or
Forget
head
that I
kick.
said Ezekiel choke. Anyone that I rolled with.
Exactly.
I don't know.
By the way,
Ezekiel
that's a
choke.
good secret.
Hey, man.
Secret choke for a lot of
It
people.
is low effort, big payoff, which is what I'm all about.
Exactly, which is fair enough point about it, and you can hit it from a lot of places.
Yeah, you
but
can.
it's that move, right? For you, it's Ezekiel choke.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was a guillotine. Once I found that, I found it, right?
Yep,
And then I
yep,
started
yep.
building a game around that. And it doesn't mean you don't have the other components, but that thing was a game changer.
As soon as you get, it's like you have. Imagine the game of jiu-jitsu as a band, and you have multiple kind of small pits that go all the way through armbar, triangle, blah blah blah, front hip. You know, the more that you rush, the more that you practice, and the more that you go through these individual things, it becomes a bigger funnel to it.
yeah,
So you,
it's like a web.
yeah.
right?
So originally you know the technique, and then you learn, oh, but what if I come from side control? Oh, what if I come from around the back? Or what if I come from... And this way you're going like, oh, maybe if I sneak up from this, position. And all of a sudden, the end point, which is the technique, right, is the same.
Yeah.
There might be different variations, but you've broadened that kind of funnel of possibilities larger and larger and larger. So they still all lead back to the one point.
Yeah.
But now you're like, oh, what if he took my back and I did this? What if he, did? What if I rolled under?
Yeah, and let's say that's like
know
one
what I mean?
submission. Totally. Let's say that's one
it's-
submission.
yeah.
Like it's a triangle, right?
It's
Like
so beautiful.
You have
Jiu-jitsu
yeah.
is
This
so
is the
beautiful.
well. What it is it's added layers of complexity, right? Like let's say the triangle is your move, right? Okay, you learn how to do a triangle from close guard, and then maybe you learn how to do it from mount, and then maybe you learn how to do it from whatever position,
Yep.
right? Just pick from spider guard or whatever, right? And then okay, that's your triangle. Every position that you increase your knowledge of how to hit that move is like a web, right? That leads to some jiu-jitsu concept, right? Some overarching. And then you got triangle, now you add your arm bar. And there's some places that you can get a triangle arm bar combination, right? And then the branch just extends. And then
Because
all
you
those
might have come
positions.
from it from armbar, or
Yeah.
you might have come from it from triangle. So you're broadening your opportunities in both ways. So
Yeah,
you
and
come
then you have like every move. So like, okay, let's say for example, triangle armbar, those are connected, right? You can also add an omoplata
So
to it.
beautiful, man.
And those are all from one, like, let's call it father or
Yep.
sister generation
Yep.
of techniques, right?
It's like language.
And then, exactly. And then you break off this jiu-jitsu is the central concept, right?
Mm-hmm.
And breaking off into that, you have, let's say, upper body attacks or arm-specific attacks, kimura, omoplata,
Waist
arm
up.
bar, right? And then you branch off that and you go to neck attacks, right? This is all jiu-jitsu. And then, okay, you want to branch off, now we have leg locks. Okay, and there's a whole series of multiple different versions of leg lock that you can hit. Toe hold, ankle lock, heel hook, all that kind of shit. So and then on top of that, you have, okay, you're playing top or bottom. Are you passing the guard or are you trying to sweep? And then from all those various guards, and it's just like, the shit just explodes outwards. And as you as you gain mastery, you sort of increase your knowledge and your level of understanding, and all of those webs just continue to spurt out on top of each other.
Really, thinking about this, how is it not infinite? Because
Oh, it
say you're
is, without
passing the
question.
say you're passing the guard with the arm here. What about here? What about here? What about here? What about here? So now you have 20 different positions between the hand slightly behind the back to the hand slightly in front of the back.
Yeah.
How can you attack it?
Oh,
What
yeah.
fulcrums are there? How do you move it?
You can
How
go
you
deep.
move around?
You
Can
can
you
go
push
deep.
it? Do you,
Yeah.
but then it's also applied to, and I will always go back to this because I think, I don't know, hate me, I don't care, I don't go on the internet. Luke, a jiu-jitsu black belt.
Man, not technically.
Hey, man.
Gotta say it.
Hey, man.
Stronghold
Everyone
podcast.
that knows you knows you, right? Because say you have traditional martial arts, and this is what I was talking about, right? If you have traditional martial arts, black belt, great. If you have traditional martial arts plus wrestling, great. Like, I would consider you a slightly different martial artist. I wouldn't consider you the same black belt because you've been through all the different variations of what about here? What about here? What about here? You have that wrestling pedigree, a sambo jiu-jitsu black belt, right? Different to you.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, well, now maybe I'm working for immediate side control off a takedown, or maybe I'm gonna try and like sprawl a weird way and take us back, and it's all the minutia.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
How can you know everything?
Yeah, you can't.
You can't. You
Dude,
can't.
I'll give you an example. I saw a great YouTube clip earlier, which was
Learn from YouTube,
No,
pals.
no, that's legit. Because John Danaher's on YouTube.
Fuck,
There-
I have.
bro,
Optimus choke, baby.
there's legends. This is one of the great things about the internet, right? Is that there are masters.
This is
of
how
the
you came to
highest
Singapore.
order. That-
Gerbil.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Gerbil. Shout out to Gerbil.
Bam.
Fucking Jeremy
Great.
Errol.
Great.
Jeremy Errol, shout out to you. In some way, you contributed to my move to Singapore, and a lot of people followed his blog online.
Yeah, one of the first things I read getting into
Let's
jiu-jitsu. Sorry.
explain it. No, let's just
Okay.
get into it. So Jeremy Errol created this Sherdog. I don't know if it's Sherdog. I saw it on Sherdog.
I did the same.
And it was basically a vlog where he chronicled his move to Brazil. I think he was a purple belt. He was an ex-military guy, and then he moved to. Yeah, he was like
I missed that part.
He was
Cool.
he was in some military. Like he was a. I don't know if he was an NCO or a sergeant or something, but he was military export, and he decided to move to Brazil to get his black belt and start to work toward jiu-jitsu. And he went and trained with Gordo. and
Yes.
Gorginho, which is the
Yes.
Evolve
Right.
connection.
Yep.
Because Evolve originally was a Gordo, Gorginho school. A lot of their professors are Gordo lineage. Gorginho, for example. I think Zorro, who was there when I was there, was also a Gordo. And then Gorginho, which is his... shit. I can't remember.
But it wasn't just the pedigree of which he'd come to which he was going to. Like, the way that he wrote it, it was totally like...
his
Desperate
vlog.
Housewives for guys.
Yeah,
that were into
exactly.
jiu-jitsu.
Oh,
'Cause
bro,
like,
for
there was
jiu-jitsu-
drama between these house people.
Oh yeah,
and,
I mean for jiu-jitsu people, this was like this was porn.
Yeah.
You're reading like internet porn, right?
I mean, I didn't jerk off to it.
I would.
many
I
times.
have,
But it was like this.
but that was the connection.
But it was
Gordo
the human
and-
element to the because
Yeah, as
jiu-jitsu
he
is
described
a
his
system,
story,
right?
training with the black belts in Brazil. Yeah, as he was describing it.
And I mean, I'm not necessarily going to say he was one of the first to do it, but to document it, at least
It went viral.
what I came
It went
through,
viral for the U.S. I would say,
which is amazing.
in the early days of things, it went
which just
viral.
shows how much interest there was,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like-
he tapped into something that hadn't been
Tapped into it. This
Literally.
guy. No, but he was a pioneer,
Yeah,
right? Not necessarily. In
I still watch
going
his
there.
videos to this day.
Oh,
My whole omoplata, my
I was
whole
going to say
omoplata
German
game.
jiu-jitsu, but I don't know. No,
Yeah,
it's
it's great.
different.
It's great grappling now.
Great grappling. Yes,
Great
it
grappling.
is. Absolutely.
And his whole lasso game I got from his video, which I still play. Like his leg lasso game, I still play. And so I messaged him, just to give context to the story. I messaged him when I was in St. Lucia, which is where I lived.
Right.
I was in the Caribbean before
How
I
old were
moved.
you then?
22,
Man.
21, 22.
Yep.
I just made my pro debut. That was from St. Lucia
Right.
because I trained at the Adrenaline Training Center before that in Canada, which is where I was sort of intermediate. I moved to St. Lucia, messaged this guy, and he was a Gordo student, which was in Singapore. And so I think he told me something about Evolve. I think I looked, and then I messaged him because they were a Gordo affiliate, and he got his black belt from Gordo. So I sent him a message because I had seen all of the shit on Sherdog about him talking about his journey to Brazil to get his black belt. And it was just a kind of passive, like, just comment, hey, you message people just
Totally.
to see like if they're
Joey
going to
Diaz,
respond.
what's up?
Yeah, you got a message from Joey Diaz. Same thing, right? I just messaged this dude, I mean, from opposite parts of the world and was like, hey, what's up? I'm moving to Singapore. And then I think he told me about Evolve, which is why my first spot was to go there. And in some ways, that was important for me when I moved to Singapore because I wanted a place to train.
Yep.
And when me and my ex-wife at the time were trying to decide where we were going to move, when I found Singapore, the first thing I did was look at a jiu-jitsu gym.
It's in your blood, right?
And then
How can you not?
I mean, I'm bored to do it for sure. And then I messaged the guy, and then I was like, and then I found out about it, and then I moved there, and then the rest is history. Now I'm here 7-8 years later doing a fucking podcast in the middle of my
Crushing it,
gym, bro.
Crushing it.
Well, I don't know about that, but the
Hey,
potential
man,
exists to
no,
crush it
no,
in the
no,
future.
it's-
We're still an upstart, bro. But
in terms of like crushing it in this kind of very like collective approach to doing this holistic approach to skill giving and information sharing. At the end of the day, people are paying you to share what you know, right?
yeah, in
No.
this context, yes, the knowledge that I've accrued.
Well, no, in a gym,
Yeah,
if you're
exactly.
a teacher, yeah, it's like you know a thing I don't know.
I'll pay
I'm
for
gonna pay
you
you
to
teach me
this
that
skill. Yeah.
which is why you teach them 10 out of 11 tricks. Grasshopper. Cannot beat me on that last one, right? I'm sure you know how to kill your students in a million ways that they have no idea about.
Well, they can make a show, and they should.
a
1,000 ways to kill your students, and it's just me fucking murdering people
Hey, man,
randomly.
it's like Happy Gilmore.
To be fair, there'd be a lot of people who would murder the shit out of me too.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
but
for
this
sure,
is what we
bro.
talk about, like
For
mastery
sure.
and knowing things and coming back to it. But,
Point is, we were talking originally about internet influence and how it comes to the sort of teachers having people that you meet over time. And it's weird that this gerbil jiu-jitsu guy, Jeremy Errol, was a guy that I just half-heartedly messaged to find out information he knew about where I was moving to. And then that connected me to the gym that I train at now, or trained at then, and then led me to the connections. The reason I started teaching was because of a connection that I met at Evolve.
okay.
Arlene,
Right.
at the time, right? I met her at Evolve and Ahmed, and they were together at the time. And then when I met them, they wanted to open up their own gym, and that's where I started working at Trifecta. And then there were loads of those, and then that has led me to Stronghold.
How many people that were, say, like like from the States or whatever. I know you came here in different circumstances, but when you talk about Jeremy going to Brazil to train and the kind of vlog that he led, you must have seen this kind of brotherly opportunity. It's like, I'm going to a country I know nothing about to try and set. Did you have, when you were coming to Singapore, did you have that in your mind of I want to do jiu-jitsu, or were you like, I'm coming here and let's see what happens?
I mean, at the time, I guess I would have said that I was just moving where I had to move for my job or for my family or whatever. But in the process of that, I was like, okay, let me find out how to maximize my life while I'm there. Mm-hmm. And through that, I messaged him and got a connection that ultimately, it's one of those tenuous connections. It's like really fleeting. You know, oftentimes you can, exactly, it's kind of weird, right? Like even me meeting Wugong, right, my producer. The reason I met Wugong was because I had a student who used to train with me, Ryan, who's in Penn State. He's Penn State doing his PhD. And I told him that I wanted to start a podcast because I'd done one with you. And so I'd wanted to just get back into it, just try, right? And then whatever happens, happens. And so it's interesting because this is these threads of connectivity that run in a way that you don't see, right? I met you before I met any of these people. And then while I was training at Evolve, in fact.
Yep.
And then through that, I decided I wanted to start a podcast. This is when I was a teacher.
Yep.
Before I was ever doing jiu-jitsu as a profession.
Which, let's be fair, you went from New York drama, came out here.
Yeah, my
teaching
school was in drama.
And
in English,
crushing
ESL.
teaching philosophy. Not just like, here are the things
trying.
you know, it's not just that thing of like pouring. How long did I steal that book from you for and never finished?
Which one?
Which one exactly? Because there have been like two.
Was it Sophie's World or was it?
Sophie's World.
Yeah.
That, like,
Which is the history of philosophy.
in
book.
such presentable like way.
It's just a narrative kind of.
But it just shows your flexibility. Say a student comes in. What's up, coach? I'm about to school you on some K-guard. You go home, you crush YouTube for like 3 hours, and you come in the next day. K-guard, let me show you some nuance to this.
Yeah.
Right? You flipped from arts and drama. Then you went to English. Then you went to philosophy, which gives you this kind of thinking scaffolding to then apply to your jiu-jitsu. Right? So you have this... Because, I mean, the reason I got into jiu-jitsu in a very roundabout way, right, is because before I had a beard, I had a mustache, right? Hutze.
Is that mustache? Is it?
Hutze.
Wugong's throwing him you're Chinese as shit look
No,
right
well,
now.
so okay, as a little aside, when I had like a Dali mustache, right, it would tickle my cheek up here.
Curl, the French tickler.
Well,
I don't know what that is.
So a friend of mine said, you have to be able to recognize this phrase, right? And it was, excuse me, not a burp. 我计划你的胡子, right? I probably wrecked it.
You get the
Ruined
general
it.
idea?
Ruined it. Yeah,
Did you get the
ruined
general
it.
idea?
You know what I'm talking about? Anyway. Or kutsu? Utsu. Okay. So basically it was, I like your mustache, right? In Mandarin. Or, yeah, let's go with that. I've been drinking today.
It's a Mandarin?
Okay,
fair enough. Wugong gives the clear.
So, but the only way that I can learn is to do it, right? So I remember I was at Muddy Murphy's fucking bar drinking cider, and a Chinese dude with an amazing mustache pulled up, like right next to me, and I was like, "This is my moment
to say this thing I've been practicing."
Totally. I was like, and then get his reaction. So I was like, 我计划你的胡子, and he just looked at me, like. I'm out of here. Picked up his drink and left, right? But the problem
like this
is
fucking white dude pretending like he knows.
no, because you have 胡子, which is mustache, and you have 裤子, which is pants. So I basically like sidled up to this guy and be like, "What's up? I like your pants." And he was like, "I'm out. I don't want anything to do with this."
Fuck this weird white dude who's trying to tell me he likes what's in my pants.
I mean, you know, that's 3 years. I totally lost my train of thought because that's so funny.
I don't know where we were at anyway, going into this conversation. Oh, I remember. We were talking about the threads.
Right.
The little threads that lead to. So I met you just to.
Right.
See, I fucking can think about what I'm talking about.
I just remembered, if you don't mind me carrying on.
Go on, bro.
So because I had this fucking mustache, and I'm bald afro represent. The only costume that I thought that I could be for Halloween was ye olde like punchy guy,
British boxer.
1,000 pounds,
Yeah.
leopard skin leotard,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
And it was a couple of months before Halloween, and I just signed up. I was like, I'm gonna learn how to box.
By the way, a couple months before, you were in front of that. You were thinking about it. You were like,
Hey,
I'm
man.
going to become a boxer because this costume is in my head.
Well, because I'm so passive, I thought that someone was gonna want to have a fight with me, because I was a boxer, right? Even though,
Like on the street, like
yeah,
people are just
yeah.
going to be
No,
like,
I see you're
wearing-"
exactly. And everyone did. As soon as I went like that, everyone well, the dudes obviously, no women did this because
That would
women are
be-
dicks. So like as soon as I went like this, they would be like, hoo ha hoo, you know, and assume the position of fucking old style boxing.
Yeah.
So I went to
Old-style
Evolve.
boxing.
Well, I went to Evolve. I did the fucking, that's where I ate shit on the first run around the room thing, you know. Did all the skipping. Finally got into it, dude. The warm up was so much worse than the actual class.
Yeah, that's typically how it is. You know what my warm-up for Muay Thai is? Listen to this. So a 4-minute skip.
Oh,
No,
what the
you're
fuck?
You're not too far off. Hold on, bro. We just got started. My warm-up is a 4-minute skip. After the skip, it's 100 push kicks, 100 knees, and 100 round kicks. That's my warm-up.
Push kick like a teep.
Like a teep.
Okay.
Left teep, right teep. You're not going hard. You're just juggling the bag, right? You're standing in front of it. Pop, pop, pop. Push kick, push kick, push kick.
Are you
then
allowed
they
to kick
skip
lower
me.
on the bag so it's easier?
I know, exactly. I tell people all the time, guys, you're not kicking people in the balls or in the vagina because there's women that train also. Okay?
What if you put like a hot orange piece of marker point that was
Kick
usually
above
hips?
this.
Yeah.
It's a good idea.
Hey,
We
man.
should put a hot pink on the backs, kick above that, or you're a fucking pussy.
Or you
And
invert the
then-
shaft. Yeah.
So, and then 100 round kicks. And for the 100 round kicks, I
Is
partner.
that when you twist the hips and
Yeah,
throw it in?
the Thai kick, right? Round kick to the body.
Yeah.
So if you're in a group of 2, it's like you switch every 10.
One
leg
holds the
kick,
bag?
body kick, head kick. Yeah. I do 10 right kick to the leg. I do 10 left kick to the leg. I do 10 right kick to the body. You do 10 right kick to the body. I do 10 right kick to the head. You do 10 right kick to the head. Then the last set is the double kick. Bop, bop, double tap.
Wait,
Muay
what?
Thai style. Every kick is 2.
Is that where you jump?
No, just you kick and then you skip step and then you kick again.
So is that
Pop, pop, double
is that
kick.
kicking with the same leg in two different
Yeah.
heights, or is that
you kick with the right leg, for example, then you hop,
Calf,
step back, and then you
body.
re-kick. Yeah.
Okay.
Or, yeah, you can change the level, or you can kick double to the body. But the Thais will often have you kick like 5 or 10 times in a row. So the double kick, the continuous kick is sort of the part of Thai style training. And actually, the reason they do that is quite specific. They do it because you have to retract the kick quickly. Right? So, for example,
bang?
if I
Switch
kick
back.
you in the body and I leave my leg hanging, you're going to catch it, especially if you're Thai.
Trip you,
Trip
take you
you,
down.
sure. Or
Which
in
is points
MMA,
based, right?
For sure.
Which comes back to this
It's a
whole
serious-
point of what's more effective. I mean, if you were say Muay Thai wasn't points based, right? And it's basically submission kickboxing, which is you fight until someone can't get up anymore,
Yeah.
right? If someone traps, you could fall down, but then you could also get back up again. So does
And
that
you're penalized for trips in Muay Thai as well. Like it looks
penalized
if
or
you get
awarded?
tripped. Well, it depends on the perspective.
Oh my god!
But it's like if I kick you in the body, right? The point of the double kick. If I kick you in the body, if I don't bring it back quickly, if I don't quickly retract the kick,
Is
then
that
you're
where
going to
you
catch
come
it.
up, twist the hips, and then slap into the
Yeah, but if I
side?
slap it and then when I slap it, I don't bring it back quickly, you're going to catch it. You're going to counter, or there's like I got to keep pop. And as
Straight
fast as I
punch,
bring
right?
it to you and slam into it, I got to bring it back quickly,
Right.
or else you'll catch it or trip it. So they do multiple kicks in a row to practice retracting the kick quickly, because in Thai boxing,
So were you
they catch all the time.
pow, and you bring it back?
Pop, pop. So you just kick, you reset, you kick right away on the same
shit.
side. So I do the warm up, leg, body, head, double tap is the last set. So it ends up being 100 kicks. So it's a 4-minute skip,
And if you're
100
doing-
push kicks, knees, and then 100 kicks.
And if you're doing 50 double
15
kicks,
minutes, by
no,
the
but
way.
if you're doing 50 double kicks, that's 100 fucking kicks.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really double,
It's for us a hobby shout.
which is why it creates 100, right? Because it's 4 sets and you double up on the last set, both legs, so it's 100 kicks, which is fucking. That's my warm up. So that's the first 15 minutes, like 10, 15
I'm
minutes.
out.
No, bro, it's good.
I'm done.
and then you know how I end my warm up is just Taekwondo. Then I switch to Taekwondo kicks. And I do,
Okay.
you do round kick, heel kick, right? If I kick you, if I'm facing you, I kick you with my shin. And then I want to kick you with my heel, right? For those of you looking in the camera, if I'm squared up with you like this, and I bring my shin across, Thai style, and I kick you with my shin. Let's assume you're not
Shin
there.
to the knee.
Yeah, to the body or whatever,
Okay.
right? And then let's assume you step back.
Do you extend the leg, or do you
Yeah,
keep
you-
it as
a little bit bent,
pointed?
a little
Okay.
bit bent. So I kick you like that, and then I bring my heel back across. So it's like a wheel kick or a heel kick, as you would call it, right? So I kick shin kick, I kick heel kick. I'm facing you the whole time. Shin, heel, shin, heel. So you work both sides of the hip flexibility. I can open my leg out to kick you
So
with
it's
my
pushing
shin,
and pulling
and then I
back.
can open sort of interior with my heel going up to kick you with my heel.
So can you
And
go?
then,
Sorry.
no, just let me finish the warm up, and then.
Oh my God, this is
expand
the
upon it.
warm-up.
Yeah, exactly. And then with the next spot, I kick you with my shin. Then this was all one leg up to this point,
Is
right?
this on
Right leg,
people or
right leg,
bags?
right leg, open. So I kick you with my right leg with my shin.
Is that people or
in the
bags?
free
My
open
question
mat.
still stands.
It's like shadow.
Oh,
boxing.
so you just okay.
Right, so let's say I kick you with my shin, I kick you with my heel. Same leg. The next one is I kick you with my shin, then I turn and I kick you with my other heel. So it's
So you
like right
pivot.
leg, left leg, right leg, left leg. So it's a tie kick and then a wheel kick, a tie kick and then a wheel kick. And then my third set is wheel kicks only. So I've gone from each one. I've gone shin kick, then I went shin kick, heel kick with the opposite, same leg, shin kick, heel kick. Then I went shin kick, heel kick with the opposite leg, and then I only go heel kick.
So
So your hip dexterity and your
so only
flexibility.
heel kicks is kind of that
That's the
short,
wheel kick.
sharp. Bang.
That's the Edson Barboza against Terry Adam, right? Where he spins and hits him with the heel and the chin and just
And
drops
can
him.
you? Do you have a target
The head,
for all the?
the chin.
Oh, it's always the head.
Yeah. For that, it's always the head. Because the hip
That's
dexterity
crazy.
is the point of the drill.
Have you ever considered doing MMA where you have a balloon and then a length of rope and then a little sandbag?
Well, you want to get lost in the sand. This is how you get lost in the sands. If I'm going to kick you, right, I'm square with you. Like our shoulders are the same right now, right?
Yeah.
We're shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah.
If
I'll
I want
probably
to
win
kick,
this, by the way, people
Yeah.
at home.
No, just watch,
Take bets.
just watch.
This guy.
So this is how you improve your head kick, right? If I want to kick you in the head, it's a possibility that it will go too low and I'll hit you in the body, right? I go like this.
If I go up,
Yeah.
then you'll hit me in the body. That's
The
fine.
next
but
possibility-
you can adjust at the last point,
but
right?
no, not really at the last point. In the next one, let's go up. Let's say I'm trying to kick you in the head.
Okay.
I don't go over your shoulder. I'm kicking you in the armpit, for example, right? You block, and instead of going over your shoulder to your head, I hit you in the armpit
Right.
because you're either blocking or I didn't wrap the kick around.
Because even if you're going higher, it'll catch and kind of slide
Which
down
is
a
why
bit,
you got to
right?
come over the top. So my drill for the kicking the head is like if my guard exactly. We're getting lost in the weeds, bro.
How high are you kicking? Up
Exactly,
here?
exactly. If my
Holy
hands are like
shit.
this, right?
Yeah.
For those watching, I have my elbows in. Classic boxing stance. My knuckles are up to my chin.
Almost
if I
like
want to kick
framing
you
your
in the head,
ears.
I have to make my kick go around and over your shoulder. If I kick like a V, it's going to come into your armpit, right?
So you're trying to hit the temple?
Yes. So I'm trying to, for the camera watching, if I go up and try to kick Gregg in the head, his shoulders are like this. If I go straight up like a V, I'm going to hit him in the armpit every time because he'll have his guard up. Flash to the armpit.
Boom. Armpit flash.
Sorry, we're gone. The next one is if I want to kick him in the head, I have to go over his shoulder and around. So the drill is to open up your hips really wide when you kick to, if you're right-legged, to turn your knee out so you come over the shoulder. And when you do those kicks like I do in my warm-up, you get flexibility kicking over the shoulder both directionally in front. So I would kick over your right shoulder like this, right? Or I can turn
Pow!
over your
in the
shoulder,
body.
your other shoulder. No, to your head. That's the point of stretching.
Wait, so you're turning that way and then
Wheel
flicking
kick.
your right heel to my face.
I turn like this for the camera watching. I turn. I'm left leg in front. I spin over my right shoulder. I turn. My heel goes over your left shoulder.
So you're going
your right
up,
shoulder.
You're
and
going
then-
up at a huge angle.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you don't go,
Holy shit.
exactly. So if you don't have the hip dexterity, you can't get over the shoulder, and that's true of both ways. If I kick you straight on, it's gonna, and I want to kick you in the head, it's going to hit you in the armpit. If I don't open my hips up and go around,
Holy
I can't target your head. if I want to wheel kick and go the other direction, if I don't have hip dexterity to come over your shoulder, I'm going to kick you in the armpit. So my hips have
that's a
to
spinning
open.
heel kick to the
Yes.
head.
Yes.
You're training anyone who wants to learn.
Beginners.
Stronghold MMA. What's up?
Beginners,
Let's
that's,
go.
That's my warm up.
Holy crap,
So my warm up
dude.
is like 300-ish leg strikes, plus the skipping. But even white belts, absolute beginners. I had a 40-something-year-old woman come in for a trial on the weekend.
Sorry,
even
this
beginners
might be
can do
normal
it.
to you, but this I'm not
That's
fit.
my beginner class. Beginners can do it.
shit.
45-year-old woman came in to trial on the weekend, and I did the exact same drill. And the level of
I'm also
skill
a huge pussy.
changes. The level of skill changes,
Yeah.
but anybody can do it. You just do the
And
same
you-
thing. You just go at your own pace,
Remember
and
we
then
were
over
talking
time.
about the adaptability.
Yeah,
of-
we got to finish up here too.
Sure, man.
Pretty soon. But keep
remember we were talking about the adaptability of saying the hand in the front and all these 10 degrees, 20 degrees. And now you're throwing kicks between body, up, shoulder,
with
outside
both
the
sides of
shoulder.
my
If the-
leg,
because,
heel
like,
and shin.
What if someone protects like this? What if someone protects like this? What if someone protects like this?
Mm.
You're gonna have to have so many different arcs, and like if you run it 1,000 times, imagine the matrix of like different places this is gonna land.
And then having to read your opponent to see what matrices are available in that given situation, which changes
that's why
constantly.
he's the coach.
right?
why
That
he's
was
the coach.
fucking fascinating, bro.
But it's infinity in any direction.
Yeah, it's infinity plus physical violence. like it's
You can
just
say no to physical violence.
at infinitum. Like you can just go, and then that's the beauty of MMA. Is like take your martial arts. I don't care what it is, go. Just go and then see where the deficiencies lie, whether it's on the feet, on the ground. Are your punches inadequate because you're
I know we're
a
finishing.
kicker? Are your kickers inadequate because you're a boxer? Then go to the ground. Are you a leg guy or are you an upper body guy? Are you a strong guy or are you a quick guy? Like
Last thought for the end of the podcast. MMA is a collection of martial arts.
mixed, any
Mixed
any
martial
martial
right?
art.
Well,
That's what it implies.
yes and no, right? Because you still
But
have
that's how it started.
But you still have bias towards jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, wrestling, right? Do you think in the next couple of years, because we've seen such a fresh flood of... I say fresh flood, but it's been going on for years. People are killers from Russia, combat
From
sambo,
every- yeah, but
right?
yeah, the-
Do you think
the
that
step
combat
countries.
sambo is going to introduce itself into martial arts in the next couple of years in the way that Muay Thai or Jiu-Jitsu or boxing, which is so synonymous with the whole brand,
Yeah.
right? Do you think that combat sambo will get in there?
It's interesting you say this because you said it earlier.
Yeah.
So it's
Because I'm so
this is-
fascinated
I know,
about
this
it.
is why I like having you on the podcast too, because we can talk about any variety.
And
of
I know
things.
nothing.
But also, I can tell you're genuinely interested because
I wanna know.
You spoke to me about this when Kwan was on the podcast
Yep.
earlier today. You were like, "Hey, what do you think about the sambo thing?" And we
Yep.
happened to be off camera.
Yep.
And then you bring it back.
Yep.
And this question still is there, which means there's a genuine interest. That's not. No one's forcing you to do that. It's inherent in your line of thought.
It's judo, jiu-jitsu, wrestling.
Yeah. And the answer to your question is
Punching. It's judo,
Yeah, if you're
judo,
doing-
kick facing,
So there's-
jiu-jitsu punching.
There's
kick
two kinds of
facing.
sambo, right? There's two kinds of sambo.
Okay.
Like for example, Singapore has a sambo team, of which I know a few who are. Yeah, they do. That you can. They just posted on the podcast on
What's up,
Instagram
man?
today of their
Really?
team. Yeah, it's like
That's amazing.
they also have a.
Congratulations.
They also have a jiu-jitsu team now, a jiu-jitsu team, a national team. Yeah. And Eva Major was talking about maybe getting Charmaine on there because she's 50 kg, and they don't have a 50 kg girl right now. So anyway,
I'll
but they
do
also
it.
have that for sambo.
I
They
work
travel
hills.
internationally, and they do that. So there's two kinds of sambo. You have the traditional sambo, which is kind of like
I also
jiu-jitsu,
identify as a 50-kilo woman.
and a sambo expert. And they wear the jacket and the no pants. Not no pants, shorts.
man,
No
fuck
pants,
pants.
Greek style, ancient Greece,
Fuck
baby.
pants.
And
I
so they wear
only
the
ever wear a
jacket,
cup.
and then they wear the shorts, right? But it's basically jiu-jitsu. And then there's the combat sambo, which is like Khabib and Fedor. And they
That's with
actually,
the kind of 3/4 shorts, right? And the half gi.
in the red rash guard or red
Yeah.
gi or whatever, but they also throw punches with MMA gloves and
I
shin
feel
pads.
like that's the best one.
That's amateur MMA, basically.
But I
And to
mean,
answer your question, they have a whole system for it. So you said earlier, is that going to creep in? It's already in.
but
Because
I mean,
Khabib,
yes,
Khabib
it
is a
but
combat
you have-
sambo. Fedor is a combat sambo
right.
guy.
It's only no. Yes, it is, and no, it isn't. Because it's in, because people have been practitioners of it. But in terms of a if I said MMA to anyone that kind of knew what I was talking about, they'd say jiu-jitsu, boxing, Muay Thai, right? That's it. I don't think people would say judo, sambo, right? I don't
what
think
if you're in
that's-
Europe? But people would also say
Right,
maybe
but
wrestling.
where in Europe?
Well, the point is it's especially because there's a huge rise, and we'll finish up on this point because you is the one you were saying anyway. There's a huge
my last
rise
thought.
in
Yeah, sorry.
Dagestani, for example. Just
Right.
a small example. Dagestani MMA. Khabib is from
Yep.
Dagestan. Zabit, who just fought this weekend, is also from Dagestan. And there's a whole plethora of these guys. Magomed Sharipov, no, that's Zabit. What's the other guy? Islam Makhachev. I think he's also
That's
Dagestani. There's a lot.
I'm going to
Right.
interrupt again.
Go ahead.
UFC, like 1 or 2 or whatever, you had all these different people fighting with all these different styles. And then one guy came in, jiu-jitsu, crushed it, right? I kind of feel like MMA right now is all the skills, but then Sambo is sitting on the side to be that jiu-jitsu to the number one, like UFC.
Yeah.
I feel like it's kind of like, oh, it's super cute. Oh, you can do these things on the ground. Oh, you can do these things striking. Oh, you can. Have you seen us?
Yeah.
Which is everything together in such a flow. Like what? I feel like it's the number one. You can talk about being.
It's the
very
most
good at
integrated
MMA.
already.
100%.
They've already had the striking combined with the wrestling
And all
combined with
those
the
degrees
jiu-jitsu.
of difference that we were talking
Yeah.
about, they've trained
Yeah.
ad infinitum.
But I think
Right.
the distinction is that the Brazilians mastered the art on the ground. Sambo emphasized more the striking wrestling
See what you mean.
combination, but the Brazilians took the submission specific grappling to the next level.
Best
Which is why-
Brazilian of all time, starting on the ground, because, hey, you're in a fight. Best Brazilian of all time, best combat sambo guy of all time. What happens?
Unless we got to finish pretty soon.
Sure.
But let's take for
I'm
example.
so sorry.
I know.
I'm just so
I know.
fascinated.
We're done soon. But let me give you the most interesting take of recent memory for its
Yep.
analogous. Damian Maia Ben Askren. Right? Okay, so what you have, it's not.
But he was a wrestler. He wasn't a sambo guy.
Sure, there's some differentiation that you can get between the two of them, but the premise is pretty much the same.
Is
If
sambo closer to jiu-jitsu or wrestling?
It's the only blend other than Vale Tudo.
Okay.
It's which also existed in Brazil.
Yeah.
So this is why the Brazilians don't get
Right.
they mastered submission
Yeah,
wrestling.
yeah,
But
yeah.
submission wrestling is not the same as wrestling. And then
Yeah.
like Vale Tudo or Sambo, to your point, is not the same as all those other things. Like they add the striking to the combination, but let's say they're on the ground, right?
So many variables.
Yeah, exactly. But let's say the combat Sambo person takes the jiu-jitsu person down. There's a couple questions. One, does the jiu-jitsu person know strike defense? And two, does
he
the
base off his
combat
back?
Sambo person on top have the same skill level as the Brazilian for example, on bottom?
Yep. Yeah.
And I would argue that the Brazilians took the submission game to the next
I feel
level.
like we can't even do it because to every you say, let's say this guy took this guy down. I might go, let's say he didn't.
Well, the only
Let's say what he went for the arm. Let's say he didn't.
the only distinction
You know,
is
there's-
MMA.
Yeah.
MMA is basically that, and what you've seen is Brazilians dominate MMA. And if there were these masters, Fedor is an example, Khabib is an example, but Brazilians and Americans have been dominating
But
MMA
it's-
from the beginning.
It's also
And you can't
an
discount that's the most
exercise
effective.
in who was around where, right?
Yes, but
So
the
say
skill
there was-
level
Right.
has been, if we're talking about like integration of martial arts
If
skills.
I think about fucking Fedor Emelianenko, holy shit, he is this demon that competes in all forms, and he comes from here and will decimate people and then disappear back into the fucking forest and fight bears, right? He chokes out ghosts as far as I'm concerned, right? He's this like god myth man, right? But he also, I feel like he was one of the purest martial artists in terms of applying different skill sets
Yeah.
into one combined
he had the whole thing.
right?
He had the guard, he had the striking, he
Right.
had the wrestling, the
But this is
submissions.
also, hey, when was was it, not K1 in Japan. It was like the 90s, right?
Be more specific.
What? Fucking
MMA Pride?
The Axe Murderer. Fucking.
Yeah, that was Pride in the 90s,
Right.
early 2000s, depending.
Was it early 2000s? Was it
Yeah.
early 90s?
2000s is when, like, Shogun
Okay.
won the Grand Prix in 2005.
Fair.
So
Okay.
early 2000s.
So you also have this difference of like information being available, right? If you were in the UK, anyone that did kung fu was basically a Chinese dude that lived in a fucking monastery and knew dragons, right?
Yeah.
If you're doing a little bit of wrestling in the States, anyone that knows combat sambo lives in the woods and fight bears, right? And as more people have fought and as more things have come together and the internet has grown and things have come, like you be able to see these points like crystallize, become more clear,
Yeah.
right? So to have, what's my point? I feel like
There's an integration almost of all martial arts at this point. That's the good thing about MMA. Like, even the Taekwondo stuff, right? Like,
Yep.
it's really uncommon to hit people with a heel in MMA. It happens, right? Like Terry Adams.
who's expecting it on the way back?
Yeah, exactly. But you see people like Anthony Pettis,
Yep.
who integrates Taekwondo into MMA. And the same thing for Fedor, who integrated Sambo. And then you have boxers, of course, and you have the Damian Mayas, the Jiu-Jitsu masters. And then of every style, you can pick a dominant champion, like Khabib or
Yep.
Fedor is the Sambo guy. And then you can pick like the Jiu-Jitsu masters. There's Hoist Gracie, for example, Damian Maya, blah, blah, blah. You have the kickboxing masters. Those are the Ernesto Hoosts and the...
Oh.
But you even have MMA kickboxers like Crow Cop.
He seems lovely.
You have Crow Cop. You have all these guys who are made famous for their kickboxing. You have the wrestlers. You have the Matt Hugheses. You have the blah, 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 right? Through every style, you can find in modern MMA masters of that discipline. And I think that it just says something going forward. Like, they just did the UFC in Moscow, and Zabit's fighting on that card.
Yep.
He's also from Dagestan, like Khabib. And then you have you got the judo masters, and you have the, like, for
Well, I don't
Sexyama,
think
and
there's
you
the
have
best
the-
martial artists.
Yeah.
I think there's too much information and too much general knowledge and too much experimentation. I don't think there's a best guy.
Yeah.
I think that,
It's not a best guy, and there's not a best style. That's what
but
you're learning.
it'll come
Different
down to like
guys have
you have two guys and they'll both roll 10 dice each, and it'll work that time.
But it's
And
even like that, like if you roll with somebody at top level, right? Like if I roll with another high-level guy, like there's sometimes where I tap them, there's sometimes that they
Yeah.
tap me. And even against the highest level guys, I've sometimes caught them. And then most of the time I'm getting fucked up, right? Like 9 out of 10, but 1 out of 10 I catch them.
But
So
how
there's
do
even
you-
something to say, like if we have a fight,
how do you know
what's
that-
the opportunity that's 1 out of 10? That exists. That potential exists. It's unlikely, but it happens.
But if you roll
Right? Buster
with
Douglas, Mike
say-
Tyson,
I
Andy Ruiz, and Anthony Joshua, these things happen.
I feel so rude calling you a brown belt because you're not. I know nothing of the jiu-jitsu community. I know nothing of the skills base, but I feel like I can appreciate
Oh, I gotta move
character.
that, actually.
And you are a black belt, my friend.
Well, thank you.
Anyway, but
we'll go down that route maybe soon. But we got to
we can
finish
do
up
it
this
here.
podcast.
Sure,
man.
let's do it. Let's do it.
'Cause
Let's
as
kill
much as I
it.
don't want, we could go for fucking 3 hours more, bro. And so I want to thank you guys, Gregg Speirs, the brewmaster, Brewjitsu, and Kwan,
Jiu-jitsu puck.
and Kwan, who left earlier. We appreciate you, Kwan. Thanks for coming on. And Wugong,
The sensible one.
appreciate you for staying late.
Kwan, the sensible one.
We're going to get Wugong a mic. I insist, man. I've said it on the podcast officially. You have no choice. We got to get you a mic because your opinion deserves to be heard.
Let me know when you're coming to do jiu-jitsu. I will come to jiu-jitsu, and you'll get 2 spazzy white belts.
Hook it up.
Doing the thing.
You guys can train
I'm only
together.
saying this so it's on film
can train
that I
together.
have something to come
See?
and,
Wugong, that's the
keeping
secret.
myself accountable.
When you make something public, you have no choice but to do it.
Oh, fuck.
Okay, everybody. Stronghold episode.
Sludge, brother.
Stronghold podcast episode 10. Gregg Speirs, James Kwan. Thank you guys for listening. Cheers.